let's, it's 25 minutes to 7. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Okay, good, thanks. All right, is there any citizens' participation this evening?
They're lining up out there.
Oh, I know. I'm just going to say that I'm requesting that all cell phones and electronic devices be turned off or in a mute position as not to disturb the meeting. I don't need to go expand on it because there's nobody here from the press that has, or nobody here with video equipment.
Bob's here.
Bob's here, that's, well, yeah, I know that. Okay, let's go. Brian, can we ask you to come up here? That
Sure.
we'll get you in first and out first.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Brian. I guess what we're looking to get from you is some response from financials.
Sure. Well, we continue to try to close the books for FY12. Some of the articles from the, all the articles from Springtown meeting have been posted. We've noticed that some of the meetings, some of the articles from last year were not posted, so we have to go back and check everything. I met with Sandy today regarding CPC. I'm trying to clarify that and rectify that. And we noticed that some of the articles were not posted. So our focus right now is on school, grants, reconciliation of cash, and CPC. I want to make sure that when I do present these numbers that they're relatively accurate and complete. And it continues to be, arduous task on a daily basis to try to get this resolved in the foreseeable future. I'm in constant contact on a weekly basis with Craig Peacock from Powers and Sullivan, our auditors, updating him on the status of where we stand. I hope to send him an adjusted trial balance by next week, which is the end of the month, for FY12 that he's going to review. And then he hopes to spend a day or two down here sometime in early October to tell us where we stand in his eyes, going over the ledger. I did meet with Frank, thank you Frank, this week to go over the format for the financials when I do present them, so they are clear and they're very easy to read, whether you're a finance person or not, as well as narrative that will accompany that monthly financial statement. I took a procurement class last week given by the state, 3 days in Boston, that was very beneficial to make sure that when we do spend money, we go to bid, it's done correctly, so we don't have any more problems with the Inspector General or any government bodies. And I welcome any questions or comments.
Anybody have questions for Brian?
How do you like it so far?
It's a challenge, but I'm enjoying it.
Good.
Every day I learn something because it involves different departments. It's a $70 million budget, and then there's 18 departments, and there's every day things have to be reviewed and knock on the door or a phone call, or it's just not, I'm going to sit down and get this done in an hour. Every day somebody, something new that comes across my desk.
You mean time management doesn't work? Anyone else have any questions? Larry?
So, with all that said, do you have a time frame that you're looking at getting the financials to us?
I would have a better guesstimate of that once Craig from Powers and Sullivan reviews that trial balance and
Okay. We were discussing, I don't know if you've been in the discussion, I think you had, that the auditors are not scheduled to come in here until November. Are they still looking at that schedule?
Correct.
Or they have not moved up the schedule?
Correct.
Okay, and everybody at the DOR, everybody's
Yes.
in agreement?
I'm in constant contact with Craig on a weekly basis. We have a Friday call. He's in contact with our representative from DOR, and as long as Powers and Sullivan is comfortable in the relationship we have with them and DOR, then I think we we're still under the gun, we still have a deadline, but based upon feedback that I give Craig and the work and report he's done with Judy. Judy's been doing this for 18 years.
Yep.
Nothing gets by her desk unless the T's are crossed and the I is dotted, so.
Is it fair to say that we will have financials by our first week in October? Can you commit to that?
Well, if Craig's gonna look at it next week,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Will
sure.
you let us know? Will you
Sure.
Send an email out?
Sure.
And let us know, because, we're getting closer and closer to town meeting.
I know.
And, we'd like to know.
Yeah, town meeting is the 22nd, so.
Yeah.
Certainly, hopefully,
So give us a couple of weeks of, I don't want a couple of nights,
I know.
And I know you know this, but I know that you also walk into the mouse too, but. Anyone else have any questions? Frank, David? No? Bonnie? All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming by.
My pleasure.
Okay. Before we get on to any other articles, why don't we have Gary Buckminster, our harbor master, come on up, and he can go over his items with us.
Oh, boy.
Lou, how are you?
Madam Chair,
Hi.
Yes, sir.
How are you? Good.
are these warrant articles?
Yes.
Move and serve the warrant.
I haven't been served a warrant.
The charter says that you're supposed to be served the warrant. Is it appropriate for us to address the warrant articles without you being served? And I know you haven't been served.
No.
All right, I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to make it loud. I'm going to make sure everybody hears it clearly.
Okay.
I've continuously complained about the updating of the town records for official business. I know you don't have the warrant because 15 minutes before I came here, I received the warrant, which was done on Thursday. They couldn't get around to the fact of delivering it to anyone until 15 minutes, like I said, 45 minutes before the meeting. Fortunately, I was late tonight. You know me, normally I'm here by then.
Mm-hmm.
All right? You are the chairman of the committee. The state needs to know it. Everyone needs to know it. And surely the constables should know it. The selectman's office personnel should know it. And the selectmen should know it. And technically, you have not been served. I thought originally coming in here and playing a silly little game called Will You Yield the Chair, so I could say I was the chairman and you could say that the Finance Committee had been properly served. But I couldn't do that either because it wasn't served to me. It was served to my wife. I have the warrant with me. It's time that we start dotting the i's and crossing the t's. As was said earlier, because the problem is, this is a small item, but it's not a small item when it comes to procurement procedures. It's not a small item when it comes to having warrants signed. It's not a small item in any of these things. Not only that, but when I received this, the first thing I did is I looked at it, and it's only signed by 3 selectmen. This is a town meeting warrant, and only 3 selectmen signed it. I'll pass you the warrant, but our committee was not properly served.
Thank you, Mr. Eve.
You going Thursday, I think it's sloppy. I really do.
This is incredibly slow. Madam Chair, this also goes to the fact that, I'm still getting mail from the chairman of the committee. And as I said to you, much as I had to steal the mail last year with another gentleman's name on it, I expected you to steal my mail. But unfortunately, I wasn't at your house to receive, what the constable had done. And you can see it's clearly labeled to me. Now, I would also say, it also says the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee. Now, the last time that I was in that position, the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee, I believe it was Mr. Slavin. I hope you didn't serve it to him.
Well,
This is wrong.
Are we then, because we have not been served, are we precluded from any discussion of that?
No, we're not, because it would waste everybody's time if we did that, all right? So I wouldn't recommend it, but we have to stop the nonsense at some point. We schedule people to come in and everything else. The warrant closed Thursday. I think it's a little I think we, as somebody once said, we've been marginalized again. Particularly our chairman.
I've still got some stuff.
I have a copy of the warrant on the 18th. Kelly,
Yes, well,
is that different from this?
well, this is the official one, that it's supposed to be served on the chairman of
By a
the finance
constable.
committee. By a constable. And evidently, it was served to Mr. Heath's wife, not even to Mr. Heath.
Well, I mean,
And
the
then
constable
the-
was smart enough to know that.
The 18th, and
should serve it
and
too.
here we are getting it today on the,
In the hopes that they got there in time before all that.
So how do we fix it?
well, Derek is gonna have to answer that question.
Now, you walked in just the right time.
So you're asking, you were not served by something by
No.
the Board of Selectmen?
No, I'm not even recognized as the chairman of the FinCom. It was served on Mr. Heath's wife.
Okay.
It's a bit sloppy, and and I'm being kind here, but it is, why? And why haven't all the selectmen signed it? There's only, there's three selectmen, or?
The last
The
page.
signatures, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, there's
Number
two of
of
them, yeah.
signatures.
What?
There should be 3 signatures.
There is 3 there.
You only require 3 signatures on
Okay. Okay. Would somebody let the folks in your office know who the chairman is? So they can make sure that this gets sent out to the right, and even the proper mailing. The mailings, a lot of my mailings are going to Frank still. So let the,
it. Just for, I know it obviously, and a
Yes.
lot of people, and there's been a letter sent to Shirley and Janet in the office
okay,
that you are now the chairman.
okay.
Has that, for fairness sake, has that been done to them, for them to be updated on that?
Have we done it? No, we haven't.
It's on the website, it's updated, isn't it?
I'm not sure. Do you know?
It is on, yeah.
It is on the website? Okay.
The fact of the matter is, the Board of Selectmen is in control of all committees, are they not?
Not
Yeah.
ours.
No, they supervise, appoint, etc., all committees. Am I incorrect in this?
Not ours.
Shouldn't they be aware of who's on it and who the chairman is?
This is not a committee they appoint. This is,
Not?
no, they don't oversee this committee.
They only have one vote.
Okay.
However, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen is the member of the appointing authority.
Yes, he is. Yes. Okay, well, thank you. Moving forward, Mr. Buckminster, I asked, we decided that we wanted last week to ask Gary in to, because we didn't have a clear explanation of his articles. Obviously, the ones that came out, I guess, there's much more explanation on the most recent, well, on the official warrant as well. But I don't want to steal your thunder.
No,
You
no
can tell us,
problem.
can you,
Can I just like to see how it's laid out in the
Okay.
physical warrant, and I can go over which one
Okay.
on the second page of that.
okay,
Here the articles are listed
oh, okay, great.
by number.
I have it.
Article 8, I think is your first one.
Okay,
8, 9, and 11.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
First one, I believe, is gonna be in the amount of 85,000. Is that the one, or is that the 30,000?
30,000.
Okay, $30,000 transfer is being requested by me out of the Waterways Maintenance and Improvement account. That is an account that's set up where all the boat excise tax money is put. That money is to be used for upgrades to our waterways, harbors. If you look at the laws, Chapter 91, Section 10A establishes it, and Chapter 40, Section 5G defines where the monies go. I'm pulling that money out because we've started looking into where we stand with the Onset Pier. The Onset Pier was finished in 1987, and steel, we're looking at issues of deteriorated steel, fasteners, pilings are broken. We're starting to see sinkholes. There are some concerns that are starting to arise with the Onset Pier. If anybody's dealt with waterways projects, they're extremely expensive, and we need to look for alternate sources to try and help fund that. Our waterways account, which we try to protect, is our contribution to the state, saying we've been trying to put monies together to help offset whatever expenses that we have to endure when the state comes in to try to help us out. I went down to the pier. I took a sledgehammer with me and some equipment, and I started hitting the metal sheathing and put a hammer through the side of the metal sheathing on the pier. I've also noticed that bolts that hold all the steel girders that keep the wall from bowing have rotted out. The I-beams that hold the seawall, that hold the metal sheathing together, are rotted through. We're talking 1/2-inch steel, 3/4 inch, 1-inch steel, which is gone. It's in that intertidal zone, and it's subject to a lot of rot, and we're starting to see damages. That means water's getting into the back of the sheathing, settling of dirt. We're looking at a lot of issues. So that $30,000 is an amount of what it could cost up to. Any monies that are left over after the survey is done, I will request that leftover funding is put back into that account so we can preserve it. The survey includes getting divers down there. They check the steel, they check the fasteners, they check the pilings. They do core samples on the onset pier where they actually cut into the asphalt. They test the soils to see water infiltration, what we're looking at for damage, and then they'll give us a report on where we stand with that. With that report, we can go before DCR, it used to be DEM, I believe, and that's when we can start looking into Seaport Council and other avenues to see if there's any funding that we can start to look at, like they did with Bessie Park, and potentially refurbish the pier. Now, my thought is, we were looking at docks because the docks that we have are also in really bad condition. So for me to sit there and say, let's just get new docks is just not, it's not a smart financial move on our end of it. I want to know how good the pier is structurally, and then maybe we can combine the docks into it and go from there. But I mean, that's our focal point of the town, I'd have to say. I think it's extremely important, and I'm going to use this. I would like to try and establish some kind of paperwork trail showing that we're doing this. Now, that being said, I hope later on in town meeting that another article comes up that is going to be going into that same account is really thought upon, because I think we need to take a step back and see what the money is being used for, and if we need to possibly freeze that money until we can get an idea of where our infrastructure assets are standing. Because we have a boat ramp that has to be replaced in onset. It's dangerous. It's to the point where we might have to close it because we have steel sticking out of it. We have the pier issue. We have docks that need to be replaced. We're looking at big ticket items, which potentially, when they go bad and we can't fix it, they're gone. So I really hope that everybody looks into this waterways maintenance account and they kind of protect it, because money's being pulled out of it on a regular basis. Last year we stopped it, and I believe town council had an opinion on what he felt this money should be used for and why it wasn't touched last year. And because of that, we were able to freeze this account, and now we currently have $85,000 in that account. So, and that's over 2 years. Our office went through every single taxpayer in town that owed back taxes on boat excise, that owed any taxes for that matter, because we would not issue them their harbor service permits, their mooring stickers this year at all. And we've been doing this for 2 years now, and we've been able to get more revenue brought in because we're getting people that have owned 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they've come in and they've paid the back taxes because we've been chasing them down and saying, guess what, you're not going to get your mooring if you don't pay this, and they're coming and paying it. So we've reestablished that account up to $85,000, which was down to zero. We didn't even know where the money was 2 years ago, and we were able to track down the monies because they weren't putting it into that account. We found the money, they put it into the account, and now we're at the second year, and it looks like it's actually coming back to life. So I really hope we can look into this later.
Is this what you're referring to? You don't want this?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's entirely up to the voting body. They can make whatever choices they need for that.
But that Article 11 is what.
Yes, I would like to just kind of go back if we're all working together on the waterways. if we're all not firing on the same cylinders here, it's a waste of time. We need a team.
Okay.
The second article is a transfer of $85,000. What I'm looking to do is I do have to replace some electronics equipment on one of our patrol boats. It's outdated, black and white, radars are failing, things of that nature. I mean, people know that we're out there, that the waterways are our job. I'm also looking to put together a mooring barge, which is going to help us with the third part of my bylaw coming up change. But what it is it's a floating work platform. We've got 125 navigational aids that we now maintain in town between red and greens, rock markers, swim markers, everything. But we also have a problem with people that don't pay moorings. We have a problem with people dragging their feet, and we need to collect. Trying to get a diver out to salvage someone's mooring is very difficult because they are very busy, and I can't be pulling chain up on the sides of boats and damaging fiberglass because it turns into a bigger expense for me. So I'm looking to build a boat that can actually be pushed around. I looked at options of getting a work boat. I looked at options of using something that we had that was old, which we really are up to date with our equipment, so I don't want to damage it too much. But our cheapest avenue was actually having a guy that is in marine contracting build a flat platform barge and coming up with a hoisting system where we can actually go up to anything and pull it out of the water. And so right now we're looking at winch systems and what would work best for us. Do we want something that's portable where we can take it off and use the barge when we do our markers, storage, things like that? I also, we have to maintain the navigational aids we have, so part of the money that's being requested is to pay for nav aids, barrels of chain, mushroom moorings. We go through probably 3 barrels of chain a year. That's about $1,100 a barrel depending on what you have to get. Mushrooms are very expensive. Markers are about $125 a piece. We have people that hit them, they sink, they get damaged, unfortunately, so we have to keep them up. Safety equipment, we try to keep up with our life jackets, tow lines, things that you can't have fail. If I have a tow line that's a few years old and it's got a fray in it and it lets go, we could probably be looking at someone that's seriously injured. We had one let go last year with me, and it came into the cab of the patrol boat like a bullet. So we got to keep up on making sure that our stuff is maintained. I have a skiff that we do use for water sampling for Division of Marine Fisheries. We use it on the ponds. We use it for search and rescues, areas that we can't get patrol boats into. It's a multi-use boat. It's a 14-foot. I need to replace, or actually repower it and get the motor, trailer, and just the regular equipment that comes along with it. And patrol boat maintenance, gel coat repairs, winterizing it. This year we have to go for water pumps on everything. Every other year I push it off. We should be doing water pumps every year on the patrol boats just because the amount of use that we have. You're dealing with sand, you're dealing with shallow waters, you're dealing with all sorts of mechanisms that wear these motors out, and we're trying to preserve them as much as possible, but we push it to every other year. So we'll be looking at that and shrink wrap because we don't have anything that we can store these things inside, so I have to get them covered, shrink, and covering for some dockage. On the dockage end of it, that was a line item that we put in last year's budget that was taken out because we had obviously some tough times ahead of us. So I feel that to use this fund to pay for the dockage for the patrol boats was much better than taking it out of the general budget that you guys assigned to us.
As I'm reading it, you said dockage, you mean actually renting dockage in other marinas?
Yep.
Is that what we're having to do?
Yep.
We don't have a centralized area to keep the boats together?
I keep 2 of our boats at Onset Bay Marina, and I keep 2 at Zecco Marina, because centralized location for us, Onset Bay Marina is the best location I can have. They've got security cameras, they've got a security guard, they've got lighting, they've got fairly decent docks. For me, it's a straight shot to the canal, it's a straight shot to the inner harbor, we're right in the middle of where we need to be. And until we get someplace that's safer, that's my next best bet. To leave our patrol boats on the town dock, they would end up on the bottom. I firmly believe it. We had a massive environmental police boat that was left down on the pier. This is just before I started in early 90s. and they went down and they actually cut the side of the boat with a razor blade and cut into the inflatable. So for now, for protecting our assets, yes, that's my best bet.
Does anyone have any other questions? I do have one.
Yep.
How much what is the total amount that you have in your Waterways account?
The Waterways account on the first article is 81,000. On this article, I have 149,000. And we have probably about 80 more moorings outstanding, so that amount will be going up.
Okay, I'm not following you there. I'm trying to figure out, you've got two requests in here, 85
Correct.
and 30. What is the total amount that you have available to you?
These are two separate
Accounts?
These are two separate accounts. The
Okay.
the harbor maintenance and improvement, the Waterways account for the first article, we have 81,000 and change in.
81,000, okay. And in the second
And the
account?
second article, we have 149,000 available. And that will be going up to probably around 156, 157, hopefully by the end of next month.
So you're only looking yourself to take out 115,000?
Yes.
Okay, so that still leaves you with a good cushion, plus you've still got plenty coming in.
Yes.
So this wouldn't, if we took money from, if we took money in Article 11, it wouldn't leave you bare bone.
This will leave $11,000 back in the account. And, I mean, like I was saying with some of the infrastructure issues, my last quote to replace the onset boat ramp is $165,000. You're looking at the pier renovation, you're probably looking at $1 million to $1.5 million. $400,000 just for the new docks.
Mm-hmm. I guess my question is though, and you've obviously been very proactive in getting all these folks to pay up. Yeah, you seem to be doing, and you're also looking to increase the fees, I see.
Yes.
And making it much easier for you to be able to take these moorings away from folks.
I think what we're trying to do is I have a list of people that actively want to use the water, and we also have a list of people that just are holding a spot just to hold it. And I feel it's more beneficial to the town to have people that want to use it.
Bonnie?
I think I understand what you're getting at about, having this fund be a little hefty, yeah. When you're looking at, you've obviously been through the grant process before, things like that. When you're out searching for that kind of money, you feel as though you need a certain amount in your own bank account because they're gonna expect you to put in a certain amount of that money. What do you feel like you really need for a cushion to have a stab at some of that other funding that's out there?
I really thought that we were knocking on the door of $100,000 in the last 2 years just by protecting that account and trying to push it in the right direction. If we could push that account to, I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of $300,000, I think we would be able to have enough leverage to sit there and say, let's say we decide that the onset boat ramp is in need of the replacement, and we come up with, I applied for some money through the Bouchard oil spill of $75,000, but I need to come up with the remainder of it. So if I get $75,000 from the oil spill money, the rest of it would come out of that account unless one of the DCR groups would come up and give us some extra money towards it. So, but I think I'm just looking at it as a buffer. If we don't get everything that we were asking for, we need something to say, okay, well, we can cover this. But I just think that's a fund that we collectively, the maintenance director, myself, and whoever else would be involved with it, marine resource committees, whoever, to be able to sit there and prioritize what we're looking at. Because I think we have a huge opportunity on the waterways, and it is a moneymaker, but I want it to be top notch also. We want people coming there. So,
What is, do we charge Highline fees parking?
yes, we do. We all commercial dockage under the town is $85 a foot, and they also have to rent the building separately.
Has he been approached to be proactive as far as, this is his moneymaker, that pier falls down, he's all done.
I don't think we can do it to that extent. They've had a business slow down too, so I understand where you're coming from, but no, I don't know as though I would do that. I would definitely be looking for, Kevin Mooney from the Waterways, things like that can work with port, Seaport Council, things of that nature, where the big money's at, the larger money.
Dominic?
Yeah, when you're talking on the Onset boat ramp, I know that the boat ramp is in need of repair and stuff, but a lot of people saying that, at low tide or at the tides, that area really needs to be dredged.
Already been done.
Okay.
It was dredged in 2000. In 2000, we dredged from Stonebridge to Dummy Bridge into the Onset boat ramp, and then also into Broad Cove. There were 4 branches on that. Unfortunately, what you're seeing is people powering up and powering down because it's a bad ramp because the trailer falls off the 20-inch drop at the end of it, and then they power onto it and the trailers get stuck. I had to go down there and we went down with conservation and we pulled old granite footings out of there, and it's a mess. There is a cut in there though. If you go in at low tide, another month or so when the water clarity comes up, you'll be able to go in there and you can see a perfect line. If you Google Earth it, you'll see the line also where it was dredged.
You don't, in 2000 I was fine it was dredged, but you believe that it doesn't need to be dredged again? You think it's fine?
Well,
I personally did. I don't.
I don't think it needs to be dredged. I think we've gotten to a water depth which is manageable back there because we're so restricted anyway with the bridge. We're dealing with water deeper there than we are in the Wareham River. If you go in by Zecco's at low tide right now, I just came out of there and I was hitting 5 feet in the channel. We're hitting 6.5, 7 feet in that back channel from the dredging, and it's consistent. So there's always room for improvement, right now
I understand that. I just don't want to say that, is it worth putting the money into the boat ramp to fix it if the tide and the depth of the water is still a problem?
Well, the boat ramp can't change configurations. We're kind of restricted on what we can do, and it would be a replacement of what you see there. It would be a 100-foot poured concrete ramp. That means they would come in, they drive sheathing, they would tear out the whole setting, they would put a footing in. Subtitally, they would put a pad. They pour a completely flush pad on the bottom, so when boats do power up, the water that's propelled from the engines is actually ricochets off of the concrete slab rather than blowing out or undermining the sediment. So there's a lot to it, but we can't exceed what's there. It'll never be a bigger ramp than what you see now.
No, is the cement where it stops down the boat, or is that going to be extended out into the water?
From what the plans show, I had it engineered 2 years ago. It's basically a turnkey project. It's ready to go. We just do public hearings and some other stuff, and any unforeseen delays.
Will the ramp itself be longer into the water?
It's a 100-foot ramp, so right now we're probably looking at 75 feet. So yeah, it would be a little bit longer, but not much.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
David?
I have several questions, but before I get started, I have 3 articles in front of me. Article 8, Article 9, and Article 11. One $30,000 from the waterway account to harbor maintenance. Article 11 wants $30,000 from the waterway improvement and maintenance to the harbor beaches maintenance account, and then Article 9 is $85,000. Now, I'm sure within your explanation it was covered, but Article 8, you're taking is for Onset Pier, $30,000.
Yes, sir.
Number 9 deals with electronics in your patrol boat, your work barge, winch system, trying to square away your 14-foot boat with a power system and a trailer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Article 11 is where what does Article 11 do?
It's not his.
It's not mine. That was submitted by the maintenance
The
department.
maintenance department submitted that in the board of
Okay.
selectmen.
Now I can get down to some questions.
Okay.
Can I just piggyback on that, Dave? I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was my question. I just want further clarification on where these funds come in, just to make sure we're clear on that, if you don't mind. The Article 8, the money into the Waterways account comes from boat excise tax.
Correct. Yes.
Article 9, the money into that account comes from
The permits that are
permits
generated
and
from the
fees.
boats. Correct.
Okay.
And would I be correct in thinking that the maintenance department wants money to sweep the beaches?
I'm not sure.
He
at
doesn't
this
know
point.
what they want it for, but they're trying to
Exactly.
right now, I apologize, one more clarification. you said you had had guidance on what that harbor master's maintenance and improvement account could be used for. Could you just give me the chapter and verse?
Yes, it's chapter 91, section 10A is the nuts and bolts.
I'm going to read it.
In chapter 40, section 5G is the breakdown of what the money's going to be used for.
Thank you.
There is, obviously, the wording that's in chapter 40 is loose. The primary objectives of that money is seawalls, harbor maintenance, things of
That's
that
all.
nature.
Thank you. Dave, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Becky, you.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, through you to the
Yes.
harbor master. Last year you came in and you had laid out the onset pier as being a challenge. One of my questions I have is, the parking lot itself, will this be part of your renovations?
If we were able to be fortunate enough to, well, let me back up. If they come up and say the pier does need to be replaced and we are looking into fundings for that, I think that would all fall under the scope of what the pier is going on. So I think you'd be looking at probably paving, you'd probably look at, we could look at probably storm water, we can look at, we have a sewer line that runs through there, things of that nature that.
Is your substructure still valid?
Yes.
And the reason driving that, Madam Chair, is that every year the police department bellies up to the bar and says, I want my parking meter funds, and it goes to the police department, and I just wanted to help understand why those parking meter funds might be diverted when we might have a need to put some money into the
We don't have a
pier.
parking lot. We have a problem.
I think that there's
No, what?
one thing that we have to look at with the pier, and I did go up to DCR a couple weeks ago and meet with Kevin Mooney from the Waterways, and I started pulling all of the old plans from the pier when they first renovated it. Fundings, the town did pay half of the pier. At the time, it was a $780,000 project in 1987. The town coughed up half of that. Half of that, meaning, I'm not sure where they got it from, but I know for a fact that the monies that the state coughed up was public access money. Public access money being spent on the pier, Waterways money. I would have to assume that we should be focusing on some of the monies that's generated in parking to go to the Waterways account. Now, I'm not trying to sit there and say, give me all this money, put it in the Waterways account, because I know the town is like a body in hypothermia right now. It's pulling all of its blood out of its arms and legs to keep the core alive, and I don't know how else to explain that. But I think that if we can come up with some kind of solution with the pier, you would probably be able to use this monies that's generated off of the pier that goes into the Waterways money to offset the cost of kiosk machines that would be useful on the pier. And now I know that you're looking at you're looking at monies from that going towards general fund, I think, and I believe some of it goes to the events committee. But I'm wondering if that's something that can be focused on a better parking program, which I know Derek is working at some point on.
We'll have a chance to spear him on that.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that there's an option there where we can actually, if we come up to some kind of happy medium where monies can be divided amongst, your events, your general fund, Waterways, everything, and it's being used off the pier. I think that's going to be huge, because I think that'll be able to pay for the parking kiosks, which are very expensive, and I've been looking into that also, and there's some lease programs and other things that are available for those machines, where the town of Plymouth is probably the best one I've seen so far.
Going back to Article 8, you said you have $81,000 available.
Yes.
Should Article 11 pass, does that mean you'll have $51,000 available?
If Article 11 passes and my article passes, we'll have 21,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Are you finished? I'm
That
sorry.
helps me, thank you.
Go ahead.
So, was this same article last year for the 30,000 for the submitted by municipal maintenance? That was submitted last year as well?
It was not, it was withdrawn,
Withdrawn.
and I believe town council had an opinion on that.
Well, see, here's the thing.
I'm not sure what it was.
I pulled the chapter 40, section 5G, and it is a little loose in areas
Okay.
where they could possibly use it. But my question would be is, it's it's one thing for the harbor master to come to us and lay out basically, and he's got 2 spreadsheets or 2, exactly what he's gonna use the money for. I would, if this article goes forward, I would like to see how that $30,000 is going to be spent, because, again, to come up and lay a figure out on us without giving us any detail doesn't give me a warm fuzzy. That's
The 30,000 in Article 11?
Article 11. I mean, come up here and ask that, it says to, my problem with this article in general is that it's to fund the harbor and beaches maintenance account or take action relative thereto. That's an open can of worms. Well, it is to me, and I'm not trying to be mean, but if we can get this kind of detail from one department head, we should be getting it from all of them before they request money.
And I agree with you, and to be fair to Mr. Gifford, we should ask him in next week.
Well, I'm all for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Derek can probably enlighten us on some of that as well. He's looking positive.
No, because he has.
No, I'd have in all honesty, I'd have the department head speak to their articles on it.
Okay.
If that's the appropriate.
All right,
And I
so,
think that's appropriate for
yeah,
us to speak.
so we'll request Mark Gifford in. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Gary?
Did you want the bylaw article? Or you also want more coverage?
Oh, the bylaw, yeah, the financial ones, did everyone read through that one bylaw one? I did too.
All that's doing is, what we're trying to do is take the existing bylaw, and since Mike Kroll has been here, we've been trying to fine tune things that we saw which were a problem after that bylaw passed. And I took some of the information that he and I compiled, I looked at other towns, I looked at what state regulations, everything, and we put it into this, and what I'm trying to do is establish a bylaw that where we can't really require people to have boat insurance, things of that nature. I want to make sure that we're offering the minimum standards are sufficient enough to be able to try and protect some people here. There are some changes with the regulations as to wintering your mooring. Concrete blocks people don't install them anymore. They're starting to fail. I've got divers telling me that corners break off when concrete starts to break down. And we'll be requiring those to be removed. But we're also going to be injecting some fees that we endure, as costs that we endure, that we're going to try and support with fees. July 1, the bylaw stated we used to have to send out a certified letter prior to being able to put on the late fee. And that was after giving them 2 months to pay their permits. Effective July 1, under the proposed bylaw, you will get hit the $25 late fee. Effective August 1 now is when I injected the certified letter. You have 10 days to answer the certified letter. On August 11th, we are on the water and we're pulling your mooring out. And we're going to be charging you $125 for the removal fee, and then we hold it. You have till September 1st to say you want to hold the location. We're trying to give people ample time to say, okay, we have problems, this and that. They have to pay for the fee, they have to pay for the late fee, and they also have to pay for the extraction fee. And then they have to get a diving company to come in and reinstall it. Unfortunately, it's going to be expensive, but you know what? It's a privilege out there, and I have a list a mile long of people that would like that spot. So I think it just keeps them on their toes and keeps things in the line. And I'm not trying to hit people in the pocket hard, but I tried to offset a fee increase by things that people are abusing, rather than the people that are always being consistent in paying and whatnot. So we're going to try and offset it there. On one of the papers I gave you, and this is my last, and I'll get out of your way, but you guys, when I came before you last fall, you asked about fee structures and whatnot and what we're going to do. I know we had some big numbers thrown, we had some medium numbers thrown. I did a breakdown of a few towns here that you can look through. There's 8 towns total. And I put us in the middle of the batch. Obviously, you'll see some of the higher towns. I think it was yours. I've got some. Yep, absolutely. We said $100 plus $4 a foot. We came up with some other figures. My breakdown is the one on the very last page. I based everything off of a 25-foot boat because that's the average boat size everybody looks at. It's just that when you think of a boat, you're thinking 25 feet. I went with a $75 permit up from $60, and it went from $1 a foot to $2 a foot. Now that will put you, I mean, you can do the math, $85 for currently for a 25-foot boat, it pushes you to $125. The mooring onlys, the people that are sitting on the moorings that are not using them, we give them 2 years. But the mooring onlys are going to $125. They're going up because it's a use it or move on. I want people to have their stuff. I want them to enjoy the waterways. That's exactly what I want them to do, is enjoy the waterways and not hoard a spot, basically. You'll see the late fee, which is existing for $25. The winter sticks that are not removed, after June 15th, they will be billed $75 because we will be taking the winter stick off and putting a regulatory ball on it, or we'll be removing their system. The gear removal fee is $125 for the ones that I spoke about in mid-August. The establishment fee is to cover the cost of me going out. We locate the areas, we mark the areas, we get water depths, GPS soundings, and we have to go back out with a diver and place the mooring so we make sure it doesn't hit other boats. There's a lot of time involved with it. So it's not a huge fee, but it's enough to cover at least 2 hours of operation.
Yes, Marilyn.
I'd like to thank you for your efforts, your hard work, and your very clear and concise presentation.
Thank you.
This just brings it to a level of professionalism. I have one just technical question on the bylaws. Just change the bylaws. Does this require a public hearing? And if it does,
Actually, it's a great time to tell you. I did post a public hearing last week. I don't believe it was. I spoke to the town clerk about it. She said it was not required, but I also heard it may be required, so I just took a bullet and we did do it. So it is on the 26th of September at 6:30 p.m. at the room across the way here at 227.
Thank you very much.
Can I have that date and time again?
Yep, it's going to be 6:30 p.m. September 26th, and it's going to be in room 227 across the hall from us here.
Thanks.
I have one other thing to ask you, Gary. Can you give an explanation of the 25? Because there's no short explanation
Just a
here.
written one, so we can put
I don't
it in.
know what
25
Just
bylaws.
oh, my bylaw. Okay, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I didn't see it was under 25. Yes, I believe that was submitted, but
I didn't see it.
She's looking for a short
Yeah, just
explanation.
a short, put in the warrant, if you have it, that'll be great.
okay, gotcha, not a problem.
Okay?
Okay, you got that from Kelly, right?
Yep, I'll
Okay.
make sure it's done tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry to take a
No,
long
sorry,
time.
hold on, don't go yet.
Madam Chair, is it possible to get what's called a red line copy of this bylaw? Red line copy is where you take the original and you red line out what you're taking out. and
Yep,
you show
absolutely.
what you
I will have that
A red
available.
line copy would be very helpful, so
I-
we don't have to go back to the bylaw and start making
That
comparisons.
would be
Gotcha.
great.
I will, I have copies of the 2 sections that we're changing. That's why I gave you the book. This book is the bylaw that we're gonna be changing. But I will have this book available at town meeting. I will have a copy of my proposed changes, because compared to the existing, we'll have it ready at town meeting.
Madam Chair, I'm asking for us to,
Yep.
Mr. Buckminster, if you could provide that to this committee.
Yes.
Sure.
I don't,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not
no,
saying have a
absolutely.
red line
Right.
copy necessarily.
I should have it, I'll probably have it done by my public
Okay.
hearing meeting, so if that's all right, I'll get it to you as soon as
So
possible.
we can see exactly what the changes are,
Yep.
make the comparisons and answer questions when we're asked.
Sure. And there's also, I think there's a revenue breakdown there of what the fee changes will be and where we'll stand and money's coming in.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Derek, you're up.
Gary. No, before we move on,
Yes.
so we just went over that, should we vote on that article?
Well, I was gonna vote on these, propose that we vote on these articles after everyone's done here.
Okay.
Meeting,
That's okay, I just didn't know you wanted to do it, was fresh on my mind, that's okay.
whatever the board desires, really. What? All right.
Let me pass out some information here. And I'm actually going to ask that you do not vote on these articles till the last meeting that's available before these. I want to give you as much information as possible, as
Okay.
short as you can. And then one to At least this gives you sort of a,
Which form is now?
Here, hold on to that. What,
They're all the
are there
same.
two of something here or
No,
one?
they're all the same.
same.
They're all the
They
same.
didn't give us enough copies.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's another guy way down there.
Yeah.
I know one.
Went from 3 to 4, sorry.
Okay,
Oh.
okay.
The first one we'll go over, we're going to call that draft backup Article 1, which is on page 1. And when we originally set the budget, we were using the original cherry sheet numbers that came out. You don't know what you're going to have till the governor signs it in. So we used what you would call, I can't think of the word, but I was pretty tight on it. Let's just say it that way.
Conservative estimate.
Thank you. So at the end of the day, between what we received in additional local general government and some of the reduced assessments, we have $127,700 available. And these are funds that are needed. And if you'll see the breakdown of it, the first thing is the Council on Aging, a new position. The title is Intake Outtake Coordinator. It's sort of a generic title in there. The idea is to make our Council on Aging social services sort of a one-stop shop now. So if somebody comes in and they're looking for food from the food pantry, to actually have it available where now this person can sign them up for such things as SNAPs, can get them bus passes. We'll have a range of items to actually bring forth for the people to be a very good help to the community, not just for the seniors on there, but for, you would say, those that need it most, the social aspect on there. We don't really have that in there now. And we have a daycare coordinator, we have an outreach coordinator, but that's more going outside of here. But this is something that I feel is needed for the department. While it's not going to necessarily bring money in, it's going to be a cost, it will be a benefit to the community, and I believe in it. So that's where that 32,000 would go in, and that is a full-time position.
Is the board on, is the Council on Aging board, are they on,
They'll be voting on this as well.
but they've been part of this to
Careful how you answer that.
Yeah, there has been sort of an outreach, if you will, but they have not voted on that. And this is the first time this draft is being seen actually by anybody.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
if I might, through you to Derek, $32,000. Does that include the cost of health care, retirement?
No, I do have room in the healthcare and retirement lines on there from recent losses, as well as the wages I could technically use. So that's why I'm just using it with the new money.
Okay, so it's going to be significantly more than the $32,000.
Absolutely. If there's a family plan involved on it, you're probably looking at an additional 14 to 15,000 on there. This is to fund the salary part of it. But I do have, as I said, room in the lines of retirement and also in the healthcare line from some of the losses there.
For this year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. McDonald?
Is this creating a new position, or is this going to be someone coming from another area into this position?
This is a new position in there. So this would be a new hire.
Donald?
I thought that there was, something that was voted on, that there was no new hiring. Is that something that's gonna be a problem?
When you say hire, when there's no new hiring, we talked about a hiring freeze at one point on
Right,
it,
that's what I'm getting at.
especially with the funds on there. However, in the position that I'm in and in the position I've been in before, working with the Council on Aging, I'm going to put forth what I believe is right.
I have no problem with it, I just wanted to know, I knew that there was a freeze on hiring, I just wanted to make sure. That there wasn't gonna be a problem.
I would use the term freeze rather loosely, given
Okay.
what I see in all parts. So.
Any other question? Yes, Tom?
Just a comment, we ought to see what the gross amount of this position is, not just what it's gonna be in this year's budget. If you're hiring somebody, what does it cost us?
I can't tell you exactly what it's going to cost.
I mean,
depending on the
you
family
gotta have
plans
some
and
sort of a
such.
rule of thumb that you deal with at certain levels.
It's gonna depend on who's hired.
36,000 is pretty much, 46,000 with the benefits and, like you said,
Right,
around
just-
14 or 15,000.
But is that just for this FY? I mean, is the actual position, the salary, or is this for remainder of the year salary, or is this
No, the salary would not exceed 32,000. It'll be
for
whatever
this fiscal year?
for the position.
Okay, that's where I'm,
Okay,
So
so
it'll be
Right.
prorated depending on when they hire
Right.
somebody.
We may not even need all of this money in there, given where they would land within the union charts. It would be a union position.
but that's a position 32. That's really what you're giving us is the base salary.
I'm giving you the salary on there for it.
Richie King, that's.
Any other items?
Okay, go ahead.
The next one would be inspectional services, the professional services, 118 Sandwich Road. Altogether cost roughly about $30,000. We had originally encumbered just under 5,000, literally just under 5,000, $4,999 for the original cleanup. Then with the asbestos issue, we had encumbered, I would say, about $10,000. And when I'm saying encumbered, this is from the FY12 budget. Now, the company that came in on the second part was unable to do what they said they would, especially for that price. We had to go out again. The next company ended up costing, with the extra dumpsters, $22,500. And then the DEP also required we had monitors out there. People sitting there, watching what's going on, digging in the soil, and sending out soil samples.
Yeah, I got a big problem with that whole situation.
Is that something that the town can lien the property to eventually recover that?
We are leaning the property for what we believe is legally
Allowable?
correct.
Okay.
And there is also the potential of seeking other measures to get these funds back. However, we have now exhausted the FY13 budget on there, and one of the reasons is when we encumbered the $10,000 from FY12, it was for a specific company. When we could not use that company anymore, those funds of $10,000 could not be brought forward according to the accounting department, so it fell off to free cash. So that was an extra $10,000. This $15,000 does not cover everything, but it does bring it back into line if we have, and the line in there, the demolition line, isn't necessarily for us going to people's properties and such. It's if one of our buildings were to burn down. It's the fact that we took a property and it's going to cost us now $3,000 to make it safe. We own it through the tax title, but our insurance company's telling us we have to do X amount of work on it, and it's not making it habitable, it's cleaning it up. It's putting boards on the windows, it's cleaning out the shed in there. It's we could one day take something that's a meth lab, and I'm sorry to say it that way, and we'd be stuck with having to clean that up.
One of the reasons
Yeah.
that I don't think the public understands why you don't necessarily want to foreclose on these properties, because once you have it, it's off the tax rolls, but then you have it, and you've got a liability to maintain it.
We're not in the business of owning property, except for
So
we already have.
that's explained.
The FICA line at the,
Oh, excuse me, Dominic.
Yeah, I wanna go back to that if I don't mind through you, Laura. This 118 Sandwich Road has been,
I'm the chairman, the madam moderator's out there.
you know, I believe that this cost the town a lot more because of employee problems within the town, one fighting against each other. And, I mean, we originally had a cost of $5,000 to clean this whole thing up. Okay? And then someone goes and said, I don't want to get into it, I don't want to throw any stones, but I don't know if you know or anything, Dirk, or Madam Moderator, if anyone actually looked into what actually
Madam
took
Chairman, I
place
don't
there.
think this is
It's not
appropriate
appropriate, okay.
at this
all right.
time.
No, it
This
isn't.
this is going into history that has nothing to do with the fact that we have to come up with $15,000.
Oh,
And
it's
I,
not-
and
can
I
accept
think
that,
everybody knows
All
what
right,
we're
I can
talking.
accept that, I'll let him go.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Go ahead.
No problem. No, I get no problem. That's all.
Then
She saved you.
thank you. The next line is the FICA line. I think everybody was at this table when we had to do the year-end transfers on there. We had already set the budget. It's also my belief if we're going to settle any union contracts, as well as the increases that were from the previous year, that we're probably going to be short about this range. And again, I'm being conservative on this, probably putting a little bit more in this line than I have to, but I really don't want to come for transfers in front of this board.
You're right, you don't.
Okay.
Enough said.
Legal services, this is also one of those from last year, when at the end of the year we were hit with roughly a $65,000 bill. The current Blattman, Bobrowski and Mead runs $15,000 a month, or roughly $180,000 a year. We also need to fund Labor Council. We have $200,000 in that line, which would give us a surplus of $20,000. After speaking with Labor Council, we're looking at the area of approximately $40,000. And the reason why some might say that's so high, some attorneys might say that's low, we are negotiating contracts that have expired in FY11 or in 2011. So unfortunately, the way we have been negotiating our contracts is we've been negotiating them in arrears, and we've only been taking them out at one-year chunks. If we are negotiating one-year contracts every year, that's costing us legal and labor attorney funds. If you can get it out for 3 years on that, that's actually a savings. Don't tell the unions that, please.
Public record out there, you're all done.
Okay.
The part-time IT staff, and this one is one we had reduced from their department before, and I know I'm going to stir up a hornet's nest if the town hall virtualization does end up going forward. Matt Underhill is not going to be able to do this on his own. We're going to need somebody in there. I would rather we have the money and we're putting in there now and saving it, and rather than try and run around for it in the spring or something like that. So,
Yeah, you want to go first?
Yes, go ahead.
Did you want to go first, or?
Well,
Go ahead.
mine will be simple. I actually met with Matt on another topic, and he showed me his to-do list for the day, and it was 350 items. So whether or not the virtualization does happen, 350 items, and he started Sunday night making the list, and he said I was already down like 40 items into it, and adding more as it go along. It's too much. He's not just, it's the phones, it is a huge responsibility for one person to do. Actually, the virtualization, if it does come off, in the end, that's gonna make his job a little easier, but still, come on, the guy needs help. There's just,
Go ahead, David.
Madam Chair, through you to our acting town administrator. I originally looked at this thing, it was something like 400 items that were open when he first, and this is a couple of years ago, we were told at that point, we need a part-time info technology person. I won't go into the details of promises made and promises not kept, because that was not your call, per se. But this situation has not gotten better over a period of time. We're gonna put money in the budget, and I wish we would put the person into that department. We're fooling ourselves when we keep saying we're saving money. It's like what I talk about when I say the purchasing department. We save so much money that we can't afford to pay the bill. Well, we're not saving anything with this man by, I appreciate that you're putting it in there, but I'd like to see you execute it and actually put the person physically in there.
Now, Dave's question, is that enough?
Probably not.
That's where I'm going.
And where I'd take off from there would be, I'd rather see somebody really strong in the IT than and put somebody part-time in the council on aging, but that's not my call. I don't know how you.
Apples and oranges.
Yeah, okay. But I think we all recognize here the value, and hopefully we get someone in to help him out. Something's better than nothing right now.
Is this add to efficiency? Are you gonna get a payoff from this guy, this addition?
Payoffs are not a good word to use, sir.
Check down.
Yeah, this would be, I don't know how to give you a value on there, but I will tell you what, it would help out a lot, and if Matt Underhill ever burns out and doesn't come in, I'm calling in sick that week. I don't want to be here
Or you
for
won't
it.
call for that.
Yeah.
It's not really something that you can quantify, it's gonna increase the efficiency, but there's not really a payback per se. I mean, he's gonna be able to get more things done, which may be a flow through to other people's.
Won't be 300 items on his list, probably.
He's not, I'm sorry to interrupt, he doesn't get overtime. So whether at the end of the week he's been in here 40 hours or 70, his pay is the same. And that's sort of a little bit of a segue. You'll see there's a strange number, the 443. I did not include his longevity pay when I set the budget. I want to give him his longevity pay. I don't want to tick him off at all.
Please.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Okay.
The audit is actually the OPEB audit that we're going to be required. The accounting told me that we're going to need that for this year. I did not know that, so.
Explain, what does
Yes,
that
what
mean?
is that?
The other post-employment benefits audit.
Other post-employment benefits?
Okay.
Yeah.
Retirement.
Yeah, so
Thank
it's
you.
going to, that shows us our liabilities going into the future, showing how many years out, what we need to put away every year and such, and we do legally have to do these, and it's my understanding that this is one of the years that we have to do this. Also, it's been my recommendation to the accounting department that we create this line, even if we can't fund it, which sounds silly, but it's the first step and will look good towards our audit, so.
Can we make sure that Dick Paulson gets a copy of it?
Well, if Monty will bring it over.
Through you to the town administrator. Are we talking about the retirement fund here, Derek?
It's not just the retirement fund, but all the aspects of it, what our future costs are going out for 30 years. I believe they extend it now.
And does it involve any part of the Plymouth County retirement system?
Yeah, which shows some of that in there.
Because like 4 years ago,
I think it was.
when we first came on board with the Plymouth County retirement system, we owed something like 22 to 25 million, and it was going to be paid off by 2025, and that number keeps going up, and now we're out to 2033.
We probably won't be here.
It's a fraud. I mean, we're never gonna pay it.
You think?
No.
The worst part is, so when I look at this,
Why don't
and if Plymouth County was honest with their rate of return, you'd probably bankrupt the town in putting aside what we really need to put aside. So are you saying that we're going to have an amount that we can look at that will tell us what our unfunded pension liability is, and will it reflect the Plymouth County retirement system?
The one that I had seen, they had put Plymouth County Retirement's information in there as well. So I imagine this is going to be a very interesting read, which is going to contain a lot of the scary numbers. I believe it is what you're asking going to be in there. If I told you yes, definitely, I could be wrong.
Right. Would it also include teachers' retirement? Because that's being paid out of the state, from my understanding, and reflects it back into the cherry sheet.
Right, that's one of our assessments that we.
So that really is still a liability, because even though the state takes care of it, it takes it back out of the cherry sheet, but it doesn't really show as one of those retirement costs that we're paying. And from my perspective, it should reflect whether it's a one line or not with the teachers also, because it does represent liability to the town.
I don't know, but we'll have to put out an RFP for this, and whoever we have doing this, it would be, I'm sure we could get them in here just to sort of maybe they'd give us a rundown ahead of time of what's going to be in there. I'm sure it would be better a rundown after to explain everything through there.
That means Dick gets an engraved
Invitation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be somehow.
Madam Chair, I might
Yes.
ask the town administrator to get a clear definition on the OPEB, what items are included, because I've seen it presented different ways. One way, there was a $21 million pension liability for Plymouth County that did not. That was put out there at the same time. There was also an $87 million that was brought up for OPEB, both in the audit report. So can we get a breakdown on that maybe next time? They could tell us exactly what's in the OPEB number.
Okay.
Right, with items, okay? I just want to make sure that we're not thinking there's no overlap when there's not.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay,
Tough question.
any more questions on Article 1?
What are we gonna do with the extra $5,200? Come on, there's more money we can spend.
I've left that open, specifically 3,000 in case the recycling does get it on there, and then the rest of there is sort of my little buffer of 1.5% to 1% that I like to have. So,
Keep the money.
Okay.
The next would be the backup for Articles 2 and 3. And actually, if I can stop, the reason why I don't want this board, or I'm asking not to vote on Article 1, is I think the last day you're voting is in approximately 2 weeks, so October 3rd. I don't know what's going to happen, if there's going to be an emergency or something in between there, so I'd just wait till the last one on there. If I've explained it sufficiently, I don't think it would be a problem waiting until then to vote, and if there's any changes, I'll be obviously before you.
Okay.
The second one would be for sort of calling the capital plan, and there's Article 2 and 3. And the first thing I'd like to say is that this does not reflect exactly what the capital planning committee had put forth. I'm still working on this one, and one of the big ones is the vehicles. If you turn to the next page, you'll see that the inspectional services has some very good vehicles in there, although if I'm saying they're 7 years old, they're low mileage, they're in good shape, they're working well. However, our Board of Health has a 1998 Ford Expedition with 145,000 miles on there. My Toyota has about 140, but that's the difference between a Toyota and a Ford.
Be careful.
Well, those of us that came on the FinCom, when we all collectively came together, remember 5 or 6 years ago? Bob, he was begging for a truck back then. He still has the same one 6
Is
years
this the
later.
truck? I thought we gave him an old police car.
No, we didn't.
Well, that was a police vehicle,
Oh.
which no matter what Larry tries to do to his truck, it's not as bad as what those guys would have done to that.
I'll just for the record state that my 2003 Ford Expedition has 343,000 miles on it, and it runs just fine.
I had a Taurus SHO that I had a lot of problems with, so I've always...
You drive the highway.
I'd like to also add that he has a maintenance budget.
Well, that's true.
Say that loudly and clearly.
The planning and data processing, there's another Ford Expedition that they use out there. 194,000. Realistically, my plan is to get, we don't need expedition
Oh, thank
for
you. That was
guys,
my question.
for these guys running around doing what we could do some of the front wheel drive sedans and such on the smaller cars, maybe even smaller box vans, so to say. Just
Thank
become more efficient on
Can we
there.
go green, get them electric cars?
We have renewed.
I'm really looking into used vehicles on these, some of them either coming up. One thing we put forward, and I'm jumping back and forth, I thought about was even getting an auctioneer's license and going to some of the auctions. We have somebody in municipal maintenance who is, who they rave about his abilities with fixing these vehicles, so it's not a bad plan on that.
No. I'm with Dave.
Your
Okay.
insight?
You're gonna tell me that you got somebody that's very good dealing with onboard computers, electrical, and maintenance issues, that's gonna be better if you go out and buy a throwaway, rear-wheel drive truck like these, throwaway Colorados. Well, I'll tell you, you'd have to really sell me on that.
I don't even know the Chevy Colorado.
Well, okay,
I'll leave that out.
yeah.
Just reassure us that you're getting the best deal possible, what makes the most
Well-
sense. I guess what we're saying is it's been so hard for the town to spend any money on this. Really, you're going to have somebody make these comments, what's the matter? I have a 99 with 300,000 miles, why can't you keep these things going? So
Right.
that's the
Well-
attitude that we're starting with.
That's an exception. I'll
Exactly,
be the
but
first to tell you.
that's a perception that, I know. So reassure us that you're looking for sensible, good value vehicles, and we'll be happy.
It is on there, and it's also, we're looking at which ones are gonna make the most sense. Again, these Chevy Colorados are actually great because they're small vehicles. They do very well in the snow and such, but maybe if you put a couple sandbags in the back, but if anybody's driven a light pickup in the snow, with no four-wheel drive, you've got some problems on there.
But the reciprocal to that is, when it snows and there's snow on the ground, most of the time, we're not really out there going for inspectional services and a lot of other things. So,
Well-
with luck, most of the time, you're just driving on wet roads.
The two caveats we may have are the municipal maintenance director and maybe the Board of Health or the health agent as well for some of the issues that come
Okay.
I would like to suggest we buy locally, so.
up.
I think we can get the best deal.
I mean, I would compromise on how good the deal is
And let them
versus,
come back and look.
and give a certain home office, hometown push to their offers.
Okay,
State,
Procurement, the state bid list.
there's a state bid list, there's a procurement policy that they have to follow.
So we'll see what we can do on some of it. If they're gonna be used and such, we might be able, but I can't.
$60,000 is how many vehicles?
That's actually 4 on there, so that's why we're leaning towards used ones.
Ah, okay.
So approximately 15,000 each, or depending on what we're gonna get. This is different. What was brought forward was a vehicle, I believe, 25,000 for the municipal maintenance director and 20,000 for the Board of Health vehicle. So I might be doing rainbows and unicorn sort of things with the best possible scenario, but maybe that's something we actually can get forward on there. So that's why I'm also not asking you to vote on this yet, because I'm still working on that. And I'm probably gonna be going in front of a capital planning committee that may not be ecstatic with my changes, but.
Dominic first?
Yeah, have you looked into any of the, what about these confiscated vehicles, the drugs, anything like that available, like through the federal? They confiscate vehicles all the time from people. Is there any way that we can get our hands on anything like that? Has anyone looked into that?
people are gonna think that I try and make these things up, but the actual directive that I got from the police department was our drug dealers don't drive nice cars.
Well, let's go to a town where drug dealers do drive big cars and get it from them.
So they've gotten used to some of them on there that if you have an $800 beater, even though they don't realize that you might be more likely to be pulled over, they feel if they lose that one, it's no big deal.
Well, let me add another
Hold
thing.
on, hold on. Well, I want to go in order. Bonnie?
Derek, I'm trying really hard to understand your abbreviations, but I can't get there. I got Board of Health, municipal name is
Assessor.
Assessor, what's
Yeah.
cons?
Conservation.
Conservation, yeah.
I really tried to take that by myself.
David, you were next.
But you were laughing too hard.
Well, I guess, when I was interfacing with the police department, the one year I came up with their magic list, for which was a question of how I got it, but it dealt with some vehicles that had been gifted, that had individuals made some mistakes. The law enforcement, federal and state, they came over to the police department. And they were relatively new vehicles, and they were in great shape. Must be that there's a new chief and there's a perception there, because they were using those for undercover cars.
They still are.
And like I said, they were new and they were in good shape, so I think something's
Yes.
This is interesting because I read about this not even a month ago, is that someone had bought at one of the government auction. It was apparently a vehicle that was driven by a drug dealer, and the woman that was in the car, I guess, lived near the same town where that drug dealer did his business, and when they saw the car, that car was shot full of holes because they thought it was still the drug dealer. So that's something else you want to consider when you buy drug dealer cars too. Is that, unless you're going to paint them or do something else to them.
All
All
right,
right,
we're
move
getting
along.
off the track here, guys.
Sorry.
Everyone else says we can
Move it a
get
little.
Yes.
I apologize.
No pun.
I already know about the cars.
Okay.
The next one is school bus. To be a vehicle, it's to give them 55,000 on there. That's obviously not going to purchase a new bus, a large one. They could purchase a used one. They could purchase 2 smaller vans on there. Now, there is the Transportation Action Committee is going on, so I could see this might become an issue, or somebody would say to hold on to this until the Transportation Action Committee has brought forth all the recommendations, but this is what's in there right now.
Okay.
The next one is $110,000 for school roof repair, which is a repetitive article, if you will.
And I wanted to let people know, I did talk to Cliff Sylvia, this was his article. When he put it into the warrant, they were not aware that it was going to be placed in Article 2. He said if the moderator would consider taking Article 2 before we went into the other articles, and if Article 2 passed with the school roof in there, they would definitely withdraw their article.
We can't take Article 2 before any article would come by law. So therefore, if their article came first and passed, then there would have to be a motion on this one to eliminate that. We probably would do it line item. So you would eliminate that line item in this article because it already has passed. You wouldn't double vote.
Okay, now you have a question, Sharon?
I had 2 questions, because I think last week when we discussed this, we had the question, there seemed to be some question as to whose responsibility the school buildings are. And before we have to have that out on town meeting floor, are we clear, and do we have some assurance that in fact it is the town's responsibility to maintain this building?
I do not have that for you.
And what do we need to do to get that?
We are still there's a couple things that we're doing on there, going up even to the Boston people to let us know if a piece of land was purchased and then, let's say even the MSBA funds used to build that school, it wasn't town funds and things like that. Now, who is responsible for the maintenance of that? And it's a surprisingly good question on there because it's baffling a lot of us. Is it town's responsibility, or the way it was built or purchased or set aside or originally funded, is it a school or town responsibility?
I think it's very important that that be clarified and that we all know this answer once and for all. That will solve a lot of future debate, clarify a lot of past debate, so whatever it takes to get the answer on that.
And I agree with that, but I still think we have an obligation right now to fix the bloody roof.
I don't think anybody argues that point, Donna, but I do believe that her point is very valid.
Oh, absolutely.
She would like-
Absolutely. Bonnie, go ahead.
Two things. One, I feel a little exception to the school committee making bargains of, okay, well, if that goes through, then we'll withdraw our article. I think that regardless of which article is pulled out of the hat first, okay, both of them are asking the town to pay for this. And I think it is going to be the town administrator's job to figure out where he's going to find the funding source. So regardless of which one comes out of the hat first or passes one way or the other, I would feel so much more comfortable if the school board was on board with Article 2 in
They are. They are.
Then they should, in the spirit of good spirit, say, we're gonna withdraw Article 7. Not, okay, if it doesn't pass with Article 2, we're still gonna go to the public and demand it again in Article 7. Okay, that's why I get this really hanky feeling about it, of not.
Well, my
Team spirit,
understanding,
yeah.
and what Cliff said to me was basically they had no idea that the roof was going to go into Article 2. That's why they wrote their own article, and I think that I feel very comfortable with what they've said, because I mean they've got a real problem. If you haven't seen it, it is a huge problem. And I mean, that gym is, you can't even go into that gym on a rainy day. And it's just gonna cause more damage. So, I mean.
Chair, if I may, I'm also imagining there's a level of uncertainty there because I can change this, or the administrator can change this plan. Also, your administrator sitting here may change the way they look. Maybe somebody else by the time town meeting's rolling around and may have an entire different idea on here. So just not to be an apologist, if you will, but I'm sure there's always some concerns in the back that if they were to withdraw their article, nothing could be brought forth then. But I would imagine if it was made its way to town meeting floor or the opening night, if they withdrew their article, I'm sure that would probably make a few people feel better, the team player atmosphere.
Dominic?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the moderator, if I might. If that article is pulled first, can they say they don't want to take it and put the ball back in and draw it again so that 2 might come before it? In other words, say they draw it and say, could we put it in for a later pull? Is that something that might be done? No, it can't be done that way?
No.
I think the best way is to amend it as the moderator said,
Either way, we're
And,
gonna
and,
vote on it.
and they said they would be the first ones to look to have it withdrawn.
Well, I think what they're worried about is this might not pass because of something else. So if 2 doesn't pass because of something
They
else.
weren't even aware.
No, I understand all that. I'm just looking at why they don't want to withdraw it beforehand. Is that Article 2 might not pass because of the vehicles or something, and then that whole article gets shut down because of something other than the roof, then they're out of luck if they withdraw first.
That's
what
true.
I thought.
That's true.
That's why they're
That's
probably
true.
leaving it in.
Okay.
So there's no way to, no way that you know of that the article can get done before, one can get done before the other. There's no way.
according to the charter. The charter says we'll do it by lottery unless there is a financial issue and the selectmen have a specific legitimate reason that there's an impending bill that has to be paid tomorrow or something that's of an emergency nature that was a financial issue for the town, they could pull it out of order.
Okay.
Isn't the roof a financial?
Been leaking for quite a while, it's not a, I'm just hoping it rains that night, because it's not only the gym roof that's leaking, it's also the auditorium.
Perfect. Right over our area.
Does the 110 cover that?
Don't go there.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
The next one would be the library windows and door repairs. I believe one of the members of the
Board of Trustees
Board of
originally
Trustees
had
that put
an
this in
article.
there also came in last year, and I believe we're all well aware of what needs to be done over there, and that this would be, there's probably payback on this, whether you're saving through what the future cost would be if you're just letting it rot away, or whether having more efficient windows, if you will, and such. This is something that should be taken care of. The next one, and Denise is going to kill me. The library carpeting one is still one that if something's coming up that needs to be done, I see as this one could be one that gets changed out. The library carpets, they are old in there. People use them. There's a kids area where I believe kids are sitting on the ground and such. So there's obviously sort of a health issue on there, but there might end up being something that's more important. And I don't believe the 27,500 would take care of the entire library. So. The next one is town hall security upgrades. It's something we really need to look into. And it starts, whether it's from the external doors there to have security cameras and such, but also, and I'm not trying to give anybody ideas, if you walk past our IT department, it is a wooden door. It's a fairly heavy wooden door with a big glass window in there. So at the end of the night, if you want something out of there, walk right in and take it or start moving it out. We've got one person on during some of the night shifts. I'm not going to go into more to what our security lacks, but it lacks.
There's a huge need.
Go ahead, Mary.
Does this just cover actual upgrades, or is this study to determine what the upgrades are? You already have some.
Mr. Underhill, in one of his tasks, has put forth some of this
There's a plan out
information
there.
on here. Yeah, I mean,
I'd like to just comment on, I mean, I like your list. I really like your list, but there's one major thing that is not on this list. And I think it's, we're lending ourselves to a possible lawsuit. The stairs going up and down the town hall are just, they're dangerous. They're dangerous. Those stair treads are ripped, and it's just an awful situation, and it's a lawsuit waiting to happen. If anybody's paid any attention to it, those rubber stairs, look,
You mean on the
the
front?
treads,
On the front
going
door?
up both sides.
No, inside.
Inside.
In the door.
Oh, inside?
Inside.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In this building or?
Well, you've got them in this building
Yeah,
too.
this building.
This building is bad too, but the town hall is really bad as well. Okay, going on? Yes.
Derek, you mentioned that, sorry, through you, Madam Chair,
No, it's
to the interim. You mentioned that this is not the same list that the capital, not exactly what capital planning is looking to put out. How are you going to square with them? Are you going to be in agreement? And are we going to get capital planning in here to hear their version?
that would be up to the committee. I'm obviously going to bring this forth to them.
Okay.
And the capital planning, sends forth recommendations to the town administrator on there. It is up to the town administrator to put it where they believe it. Would I like to have capital planning's backing on this? Yes, I think it helps with us all.
That's where I was going to
Mhm.
work.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Capital planning at its last meeting did make its recommendations, and the motion was as a recommendation, recognizing that the town administrator has the right to modify it. I don't think there's going to be a problem here. They were more concerned with the financing, right, which is Article 3,
Mhm.
right, because that's really where they're supposed to make their strongest recommendation, but it's actually his choice. Now, the agreement committee was his choice as to where he spent the money, right, and they had merely asked him for his recommendations, and he asked at the same time for the same type of latitude that he's asking for tonight.
Thank you.
So
David?
that'll all be addressed on Friday.
Okay. David?
Did we include the $30,000 a year that we're spending on windows at Upper Cape Vocational in the budget?
That was not put in the budget this year per Upper Cape Tech. That won't be charged till FY14. They put off when they were actually going to do it, so it wasn't charged to us in FY13. They told us they helped us out with that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
So this would be the part of Article 3, how we're actually going to fund it. And the thought is, if you remember from the Springtown meeting when we were doing the budget, I am a very big proponent of putting money away into the stabilization fund, and I believe every time it was asked, I said I believe in there. One of the big reasons for that as well is we were facing possible bonds, large bonds for the schools and such, and having money set aside obviously helps your bond rating. Those failed. We're not going to do that, but I don't want to raid the stabilization fund. We could take, I believe we'll have approximately 568,000 in there this year. We could take that all out and fund the 350,000. But my belief is that we would take out roughly what we think is the first year payment. You won't know until you have the actual interest that it's going to be. But from what I've heard, the State House notes are running roughly 3%. So on the bonds with the simple interest, your first year payment would be roughly $80,500. So the thought is to transfer from the stabilization fund $80,500 to pay for the first year of this plan. Only the first year. Thereafter, it's going to be part of our debt service line. Now, this may not be a payment in FY13, depending on when the bond would go through. Now, my other issue is, when we're putting this list together, we're also going to get bond council's okay. They may tell me no to used vehicles on there, which is what I'm waiting for on there as well. So I'm going to give them a criteria of vehicles used 2 years with, I believe, 45 to 50,000 miles. How long will you allow us to bond? How long can we bond for on that? Will you allow 5 years? But this would be what a 5-year projection would look like on it.
Madam Chair, if I may, now, the recommendation that came out of the Finance Committee was to transfer some money from the stabilization fund appropriation, not from the fund.
From the appropriation,
Right,
excuse me.
and that's a Scrivener's error on here, right? Because what it means is we're not taking money that's been put out in prior years. What we're doing is we're reducing the 100,000 this year to roughly, no, it's 20,000, it's supposed to be 25, but that's okay. All right, that's what we were doing, you know, that was what the proposal was, and really, I think that's where the capital planning committee will stand. All right, is that they won't want to reduce what's already in there by any means, but they would want to change the appropriation to debt service.
Okay.
Yes. Madam Moderator, do you think we're going to have a problem on there with that? Or within the motion, would that be a change?
I still agree with that.
Now you know how Rich feels being put on the bus.
Run it by him ahead of time.
Transfer the money.
Because, I mean, really, the fall budget is to correct anything from what was done in June, so
Yeah.
I would think that that's, then,
Okay.
It was to reduce that, but it was also to reduce that appropriation and to increase the appropriation to debt service. All right, so we'll have to have some type of adjustment. There'll have to be an amendment
Well, I could
and final motions made.
potentially add it to the budget amendments, since that is sort of a generic article on there. The only thing is, if this was included in the budget amendment, we may have to, if Article 3 came up, they may have to be sequential in there, which might be the cleanest way.
Cleanest way would be to handle it separately, I think, because you don't know with the lottery system what's gonna come up when. She's already got enough notes. Trying to figure out how they're gonna do it. It's just a matter of amending the motion, or I'm sorry, making the motion to amend, which I think we could do from the FinCom, or capital planning could do, one or the other. So people understand that we're not reducing that stabilization fund, we're just changing a
The amount that
budget
we're
item.
putting in
Right,
this year.
right.
We're just modifying an appropriation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And where the money's going to, then we'll also clearly hear that it's going to the debt service for capital items. I think that would satisfy most of the.
Mhm.
And since we're doing this before the tax rate's being set, it's not an issue. It actually hasn't even if it on the books it transferred, it technically hasn't transferred until they set the tax rate on there, because you can change the way the numbers are being input on there. So I think we'd be all set on that.
Okay.
Okay, now, you want us to wait till the last night of voting on this. Are you going to, that's just gonna put off the writing of the explanations on that? It's gonna put us under the gun there, but I'm sure that you'll assist us with that, those articles? Yes. Okay. How many items on the to-do list? 350, how many?
Are we going to discuss this vehicle list?
The vehicle list was, I thought it might be something you guys would enjoy, so I
Yeah.
tacked it on there.
Kind of interesting meeting.
Very excellent.
I wanted to
Wow.
I've read through it.
Yes,
If I might.
yes.
A couple years ago, I sent to the town administrator an email requesting some information on this. It appears that there's a comprehensible deductible collected, and I asked for a definition of what is this comprehensive insurance, or what kind it was. And it turned out I really got bad breath on my email, and it never got answered. And I'm curious, I carry a higher deductible on my car insurance. Gambling, of course, that I don't have an ambulance or an accident, but I guess some of these vehicles are old, and is any of this comprehensive insurance, or is it dealing strictly medical? What is the definition of this list that we're covered by with insurance? That's what I'm really curious about, if I could get some information on that. Because $500 seems awful low.
Would you mind emailing me that?
Not a problem, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, that's.
I'll get it off to you.
Okay.
I'll get it off.
All right. That's it for you? Is that all you have?
Sure, there's the police transfer. I've
Yeah.
already said on there, I'd prefer that some of them come in to speak about their own articles. This is the same one that we saw in the spring on there. Instead of waiting till the spring, they're putting it in there in the fall.
Can I ask a question about that? Not that I know you asked us to ask them, but it was always my understanding that the staff at the town pier was under the auspices of the police department. So you're telling me the expense to operate his staff there was not part of his original budget?
That would be a great inference if that's,
Yeah, he can come talk to us.
Yeah, I think,
It was just always my assumption, which is why I'm just shocked by this.
shall I have him come in next week?
Or at least answer our question.
I'll have him come in. I'll ask him to come in.
I mean, it's only $4,600, but
So 2,500
I'm just
is
curious.
equipment repairs.
yeah.
Probably all that
Especially
overtime
I'm
that's
concerned.
going on those wave runners and stuff.
I'm just a little concerned over the fact that, I mean, I don't know what equipment repairs are. I mean, the CEC, which is actually having a meeting right now, but I have to be over here. I mean, they're working on putting in, or working with the police department on a kiosk system for parking, et cetera. So I'm just wondering if this has to do with, the in and out parking system or whatever. Are we preparing something that's gonna be a moot point?
Yeah,
That's all.
All right, let's ask the chief to come in and explain Article 4.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
think that was the intent of my question to the harbor master, was the definition of what kind of shape was the pier in.
Mhm.
Because my sensing here is that he could use the money and, no, I made my point.
Okay.
do we really want to bother this guy for $4,600?
Yeah,
Yep.
I would.
We do.
Only because, like I said, I've always assumed it was part of his budget. If it's something he's gone over his budget, or he's skimmed off his budget and said, okay, well, this is a separate thing, I'm not covering that in my budget. I mean, I'd just like to clarify that, so.
Okay. We'll have someone from the police department come in and clarify that next meeting. Might not be him, it might be a representative.
Okay.
Okay. He's got a long drive home.
All right, thank you very much.
Article 5.
If I can ask a question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The articles for the Article 6 for the Mckinney-vento, are you having the school come in on that one to speak about it before you vote on it, or?
They've already came in here and covered it.
Explained it to us.
Yeah.
And this is, I've sent them the information, I believe, I'm gonna give it to you on that. I had personally concerns for the town for setting the tax rate. If we vote these funds into their budget, what are we realistically doing? And I should have made copies. Do you mind if I read this
No,
right here?
not at all.
This is from our DOR rep, Jared Curtis, and this is, forward this to me from Jerry Perry, who is the director there. To all, as some of you know, over $11 million was appropriated by the state for FY13 regarding the McKinney-vento issue. We are receiving calls from municipalities on how to handle this. We're not the only ones, so it made me feel good on that one. Other people are questioning, but we have consulted with DESI on this issue. DESI will review the year-end reports currently submitted to them for the close of FY12 and calculate the amount of FY13 distribution for each community based upon their reviews. Jay Sullivan from DESI will send data to us every other week as they proceed. So in other words, whatever communities they get in. This will be shared with you as we get it. The problem is that we may have tax rate submissions without this review, and unfortunately we cannot use an estimate without DESI approval. Therefore, any community that does not have DESI approval cannot use a figure on page 3. Page 3 is part of the documents on there when they're setting. So it would roll to free cash for next year. Suggest to your communities they contact their school departments to make sure the year-end report is submitted. We've done that, and they're on top of that. Or have them call DESI for a figure. Finally, though, there are several issues regarding the municipal revenue growth factor for this year. Until we can resolve certain questions, have the community report as miscellaneous non-recurring revenue on page 3 during the FY13 tax rate. And it's more of the tax rate change. I'll give you a full copy of this so everybody can have it. So my concern is they're asking that this be voted into their budget. And this is not money to be voted into a budget. It is a reimbursement. So it should go, if it's going to be there, it should be voted into a separate line. But until DESI says this is the exact number they're giving them, if we vote this in and they don't have that money by DESI, the Department of Revenue will not recognize that, and we will have an unbalanced budget by $125,000 if that's the number. It will hurt us. I'm not against the school getting this money. I'm against us doing something that's going to hurt us that we can wait till the next town meeting to put in there. If they know this money's coming, they can understand it with their budget.
So that's the question for you and Madam Moderator as to whether can we vote on it as a concept without a dollar amount.
She's not paying attention to it.
That's all right, I was thinking about it.
To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds. Available funds would be, it's not taxation. It would be what we would have in accounts. Or it would be state aid on there. But that's not going to be available funds until we have that number. So to see if the town will vote transfer from available funds a sum of money to the non-net school spending line under Article 6. Again, that I don't believe that should go to the non-net school spending line. That this is a reimbursement on there. I would suggest that we could get ourselves in trouble. I would suggest that we vote it to a line or to a separate line, create a McKinney-vento line, or they can either do through journal entries or direct expenditures out there at the end.
But we need an actual dollar figure to be.
We need an actual dollar figure on there. And again, it's just so there's no misunderstanding. I am not against them getting this money. I'm just against a good thing causing an issue.
Yeah, I think the article's, it's flawed the way it is. I mean, we don't know what the number's going to be. And we won't. David?
Let's throw you to the acting town administrator. Isn't non-net spending the responsibility of the town, not of the school?
We don't get any credit of it. Whatever we give them on the non-net school spending does not go to the minimum contribution of there. That's just one part of it. So the bus fleet, this is sort of one of the things on there. The bus fleet is the procurement part. I'm understanding is part of the town should purchase those. As for the maintenance of those, I don't know if a letter's ever been issued to change that or what the technicalities are of that. My opinion or belief can often be different than the reality or what the law is.
Nicely put.
So,
So basically, if we were to vote this, if this was to get passed by town meeting, this could be a problem, because we don't know how much we're gonna get.
we would have to reduce another line in the budget by $125,000 before we set the tax rate.
So it doesn't matter that the money is additional state education, until we get it in, it's gonna have to come out of something.
Until they tell us how much we're going to
Right.
get.
Until we get a certified number from DESI.
Certified number,
Yeah.
is what I'm looking for.
And if we get a certified number before town meeting, great. Again, I don't believe it should go into the budget. It should be a separate offset because they don't know what they're going to get year in and year out on that. And by putting it in the budget, you sort of create an unrealistic expectation.
Well, it's actual revenues versus projected revenue, and they're projecting this revenue at,
It's not revenue.
It's not revenue.
It's a reimbursement.
well,
It's a reimbursement.
the first one's additional state education.
Right, and that
Yeah,
one's
that's
fine. We know
fine.
that's on the cherry sheet. We're getting that. We've seen that. That's perfectly
No, the
fine.
McKinney-vento, I agree, that's,
So should we ask them to maybe hold off till September? I mean, till
Let's-
October fall?
Why don't we
Till
put
I
that,
mean, this is October,
April.
spring. Thank you, Tom.
Until we
I
have to-
appreciate that.
make a decision, maybe the number, is there a chance the number will come in by then?
Yeah, I think the school is very proactive when it's coming to their finances getting money. They're gung ho on it. So there is the potential for that number to come in and be certified beforehand. I just want you to let this.
You feel as though it shouldn't go into the non-net school spending line?
No.
It should be carried
No, because what you're
on a
being,
different line?
what this is money that you're being reimbursed for that what you spent in 2012.
Right.
So you shouldn't realistically put that in the 2013 budget. I would, and it can go to them. It's their money on there. But I would just say that we would put it into a separate line on there called the McKinney-vento that they can use to expend out of there or do the
Offset their
journal.
transportation expenses or whatever they might have.
Right, but putting it directly into the budget and bringing the budget up, it seems wrong in accounting as an issue with
Yeah,
it
I
as
think
well.
you do.
So can we amend this at the town meeting if we don't have can we just,
Could make a motion to table.
we could make a motion to table it too.
Yeah, I wouldn't do anything really against.
Until we know what's going
On
on.
your last day, I would ask this body if there's not a number here, that there's not a favorable vote, or that would be, I don't know how to say that without sounding bossy or anything, but that's my belief on there.
It's your
that-
job is to
Say it
tell us
sound
when we can't
bossy,
get in
yeah.
trouble.
Okay,
That's,
yeah.
that's your
That's
job.
it, that's your job, you
Yeah.
know, and,
Madam Chair, question to
Yes.
the moderator, would it be better to table or withdraw? Psychologically, table is better, but
Psychologically, table's better. If it doesn't come off the table before the end of the meeting, then there's no action taken.
right, withdraw means.
Which doesn't mean that somebody
conceding,
can't take it off the
Yeah, so
table
you've got
if sometime during, how many nights we go, which I'm hoping.
One.
um,
Okay, well, we could table it
You could
and
table
let the
it.
meeting expire.
And let the meeting.
As long as someone in the audience doesn't bring it up.
We're gonna put it back again. It's a little bit.
maybe it's worth talking to Barry about.
Yeah, that
Well,
might be the best.
Actually, Cliff and Jeff will understand the
Mhm.
semantics behind it, that
Mhm.
they get it, so that shouldn't be so hard to.
Right, my concern is if they withdraw it, then there's gonna be a surrender, all right?
You know what-
Not just have trouble with them, but we're actually liable to have problems in the spring when we're gonna put it in.
I'm
We
going
wanna
to,
make sure that we're committed to them.
our liaison is not available for a while, Sam. Can I,
What's up with that?
pardon?
I was gonna ask.
He's away. Oh, he sent me an email. He's away till sometime in October. Could I impose upon the vice chair to talk to this, Barry regarding this, or?
I'll raise it with the action committee if nothing else,
Okay, all right,
what they would do with it.
okay.
I have forwarded this to Barry on there, so that he has it with my concerns on there. So they also understand where I'm coming from, because in all these sorts of negotiations, you can, if you'll call them that, you can see where, I just want them to know what's going on in there. It's not an objection to them, it's not an objection to the McKinney-vento, it's the reality of what happens if we don't do this correctly.
That's
Okay.
appreciated, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, and we talked about the roof. And 8 and 9 we've gone through. Okay, 8 and 9 we have gone through. 10, we know that this is not the famous defibrillators that the police were looking for. This is the EMS stuff. And 11,
11, 12, 13 are all municipal maintenance.
so do you want to get, I'll ask Mr. Griffith to come in. I have him on my list here, so we'll ask him for 11, 12, and 13.
Can I ask Derek about the health of these accounts that we want to rob out of?
I like
That's
that
all.
word, rob.
I think you can ask, maybe reluctant to answer.
Blushed a little
You-
bit, I don't know.
You missed the asking the gentleman that was here earlier, that question.
Okay.
Oh, Gary.
Yeah, but two of these aren't being transferred out of the,
If you, usually these are done during the spring from the 25,000 from the parking meter fund to the municipal maintenance department for the signed materials account.
Mhm.
And then the other one should be the line painting account.
Those are on every year.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
on in the spring usually. I mean, you don't do line painting in the fall, in the winter.
Well, he
The-
didn't do them because of issues with time.
I'm honest here, I believe they forgot to be put into the spring town meeting, the budget there, when the time was up, and rather
Oh,
than,
okay.
but the health of the account should be noted, and it should, before there would be any action on them, I would expect to have the numbers for you.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Okay, Article 14, we spoke to the recycling committee.
And if the question is where the funding coming from, we do have the additional state aid that we haven't spent that just in case that gets,
Okay.
makes its way through.
And we discussed 15, didn't we discuss 15 last
Yep.
week?
The accountant is going to give you an update on these, because I believe one of the Woodward and Currents was paid, and there might be some other ones on there. This was brought to my attention today. And this is actually, if you look, when we did Articles 1, 2, and 3, we submitted them as generic articles. This should have been
Right.
done for Article 15 as well, if they're,
Okay.
but unfortunately, whatever's pretty much in there, or whatever money's placed in there is what we're sort of stuck with on there.
Okay. Now, this purchasing wind power. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, Article 15, if I remember right, on the Board of Selectmen's meeting the other night, they voted to pay a Woodward Current. I don't know if, can we check to make sure that these are still all, outstanding, is that? No? Is there any way to make sure that these are still
Well, we
all
can,
outstanding?
we can ask Brian.
Okay.
Ask Brian.
Yeah, obviously the list should be brought forth with the proof that they either have been paid or have not been paid. I'm being told that, I'm being told that, if I can remember, that they were speaking about Woodward and Curran because they were talking about the flow, and they said that they had the study done by Woodward and Curran
And they did.
on there, and that's what they were speaking about during the
That
Walmart.
wasn't a payment of a bill?
No, I don't.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I knew something was brought up, I just want to make sure.
No, good catch on the remembering the names.
Yeah, right, I
Yeah.
didn't bring it about, yeah.
The purchasing wind power, on these, one of the, I believe solar credit purchase, that company, I spoke to the gentleman today, and I asked him to forward me two things, an explanation and his contact information to forward to the chair, so if
Okay.
you'd like to have them in, because I would imagine these are considered financial articles.
Mhm.
I'll reach out and do the same for the wind power.
Okay.
I will ask Mr. Campina there to reach out and come in as well to speak to solar lease, because it's not just the solar company, but it's his vision as well on there.
So Campina,
Yes,
so we'll have him come in?
yes,
Okay.
when you tell me it's okay.
Okay. Okay, we haven't talked to anyone from CPC. And that's Angela Dunham. We should have her in.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have a contact number for her? 8578.
Do you have such a...
Yes, I do. Well, I know
And Sandy knows this, right?
I know he lives next door to her.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I beg your indulgence, I apologize. I have a situation that I have to leave early now,
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
thank you very much, Derek.
Okay, all right, so
Good luck on that one, he's okay.
Thanks.
2021.
24 is what we're up to now. You take all the TIF agreements.
Okay, what, 22?
That's the TIF. That's
Oh, yeah, that's the tip one. We've heard,
Salpina came up.
Yeah. 22 and 23.
He owes us some answers, I think, by the way, too, does he not?
I'm sorry, you want to reverse that? What are you talking about?
Oh, you might not have been here. The Martin Getty presentation.
And I guess I wasn't here.
Okay, team, what is it?
Team
Marzetti.
Marzetti.
Marzetti,
Team
yeah.
Marzetti. The crouton people.
Yeah, I know who it is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I missed it. He came to visit you, person?
Well, Sal was in, and brought us in a pamphlet, and they discussed about tax tips, a little bit of tax relief to get them. What are you looking for, Bonnie? Yeah, to keep them, exactly.
Basically, they want to add another part of
Building,
their facility where they do I guess they produce here and they package in New Bedford.
right,
They want to move the packaging here, which would increase, I believe.
30
Yeah,
employees.
the total is like 120
10 jobs out of New Bedford and
something.
in total 25
Right.
additions.
So, but
for
in order
capacity.
to do that, they're coming back to us and saying, we want to share in the tax. Basically, what they're doing is they're financing whatever equipment upgrades they have by asking for a tax relief. In other words, we're going to have, if it was $10,000, we'll give them $5,000 of that back. Now, and believe me, I've had enough arguments over this thing. The downside of this, we don't do this, we're very likely to lose 175 jobs in total, I believe, out of this town. Plus, we're going to lose any kind of benefit of someone
Tax
being in that,
benefit.
right, in that industrial park at all. So we're giving up basically $5,000 for 10 years. Am I right?
Yeah, $100,000 in 20 years.
Yeah,
20 years.
21
I'm sorry, my brain was. I missed a week. So we're giving up basically a sum of money to keep them here, but the overall benefit, economic benefit, is much greater than,
Yes.
than them walking out the door and leaving us with nothing.
I don't think Tom agrees. He's shaking his head. Go
No,
ahead.
I definitely agree. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
But my question is, why do we have two of these? I mean, you can't, you pass one, you can't refuse the other.
I think they're two different.
It's two different buildings.
It
Right,
is two
because-
different buildings.
Why don't they just smash it together and say, this is what we're looking for?
I believe legally it's the economic zone on there, and what you're doing is, the first one, so-called Article 22, that property's owned by one owner. Article 23, the other property's owned by a different owner on there. And although there's the triple net lease is on there, so that's where it takes into effect. It would be easier, probably would save us all time. I'm hoping if one comes up, maybe we can do the other. If the first one passes, maybe we'll get the second one on there. And if I can keep on speaking, that the $10,000 number is sort of a rough estimate.
Right.
It could be $1 is the increase in there. Realistically, what they're looking for is just the percentage on there, because that allows them to get tax credits through the state on there.
And negotiate with the state. for
And
even bigger
negotiate
numbers.
with the state. Because what they're doing in there, their equipment is tax exempt. The upgrades to the facilities are really, it's not square footage, they're not expanding, so it's changing the interior, so there's not going to be that much of a tax assessment upgrade, but they just sort of, the town that they're in, giving them a significant percentage of whatever the change is there is the first step for them going towards the other ones.
It's a very interesting company, what they've done. They've got a lot of little specialty brands all over.
Yeah.
the-
I was under the impression with the new building, I know the equipment, the actual manufacturing equipment or processing equipment is tax exempt, but the other things that were doing, leasehold improvements to the building, were gonna amount to some money.
It's going to amount to some money. They're going to put several $1 million into
Right.
it, but what they're going to get out of that assessment-wise
I don't know.
may not be significant. And that's sort of, there's been almost a debate on it, and people are saying, well, it should be more, it should be more. It's unfortunately, it's not. Obviously, we would love more tax revenue on there, and I'm sure assessors will we'll try and hit them as hard as they can on there, but,
Yeah, I would like to hear from her on how she sees this for one, and I believe you asked a lot of questions to him, and he owed us some,
Yeah, he didn't know. He was
really didn't
was
know.
totally unprepared.
So I would like to hear from the assessor or some follow-up on those questions, because it's, you know,
Well, I thought, so, you said that the equipment in the building is not taxed, there's no personal
processing
property tax?
equipment.
you're manufacturing the process equipment.
You're a manufacturing company, the processing equipment is not subject to personal property tax?
If it's tax exempt on there, so if it's an
It
M
is?
Corp.
Yeah.
Go ahead there, Frank.
It's been a while. I'm not even gonna guess.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, I mean, I've heard a lot of debate in the general public over this. I mean, I'm talking about small business owners that are just really angered by this.
What?
Why?
Can I finish my statement?
Sure.
Boy, you're just
Go
hostile
ahead.
tonight.
They feel like this company, and it's a nice little company, don't get me wrong, they feel like they're putting a squeeze on the town, that if you don't let us do this, then we're gonna go somewhere else and we're just gonna, we'll improve, we'll upgrade somewhere else,
So
okay?
that's what life is like in the big city, though.
I understand that,
Welcome
but
to
don't you
the
feel like you're opening the door for the next guy down the road to say, well, I might not stay in Wareham if you don't let me do this, and give me a tax break as you gave that guy a tax break over there. This is the scoop I'm getting from the general, everyday, hardworking man walking around town here.
You got
Okay.
any, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not talking, big
Okay.
corporations who understand any of this. I'm talking about the general, small businessman who doesn't understand why we should give this man a break, this company a break, okay, when nobody else is getting a break.
Our answer could be they're supplying jobs.
175 jobs.
Jobs.
I won't make a comment on that, however.
If
I know what your comment would be.
If I might, also, Madam Chairman, through you, there's the problem of
Thank you, Frank.
if they move, all right, there's $140,000 amount that we're receiving now in revenues, that an abatement will be requested on the building, and we will lose, not the $5,000 he's putting in as part of a financing deal, and that's the other thing we have to understand. It is part of his financing deal, that's how he gets all the credits from the state, et cetera.
Mhm.
This is not a bottom line profit type thing, other than the fact he's expanded his business. All right, but we lose not just the 5,000 that we would get in this expansion. All right, we lose whatever the new value of the building would be when it was unoccupied. The other side on the TIFs, we have to make sure that the public begins to understand these TIFs, because if you're gonna do economic development in this town, and you're gonna do it in the industrial park, this is gonna come up repeatedly. And a TIF is 1,000 times better than an industrial revenue bond, because industrial revenue bonds are for the town to back, and guess who pays when they default? All right, on this particular one, all right, they're putting the bulk of the money in, we're getting additional monies, we're only looking at 100,000 over 20 years. Also, that's, remember, money grows, inflation-wise, et cetera. All right, but the key thing is not only is it jobs, all right, but it's also sort of an insurance against the money we are receiving, plus we'll get the other 5,000. A key understanding also has to be there in the sense that the state is putting up far more money than the town is, because they are in fact getting business revenues, they're getting taxes off those revenues of the business, they're getting employment taxes, so there's a lot more that's coming from the state. We're sort of like the minor piece, but the state won't do anything with the company to keep it in the state of Massachusetts unless a town is willing to go into a TIF deal with them. Why give it up? Why come up with a vacancy in our industrial park, et cetera? All right, and my personal feeling would be is if there is another merchant in town who can expand his business at the same percentage, all right, and put the same amount, do the same thing, put the money and the effort in and hire the people, I surely would want to talk to him about a TIF as well for economic development, because
agree.
that's where we need to go. All right, we cannot turn things away because we don't have an understanding. We have to get an understanding, the public has to get an understanding, and we have to move forward. We need to start filling the revenue gap.
I don't
You
disagree.
couldn't have said it better.
I was
Right.
playing devil's advocate and telling you this
I
is what.
understand that. And I
Excellent
thank you for the-
job.
and I thank you for the opportunity, and I hope Mr. White
Is
is
it, we're gonna have a
recording.
YouTube presentation of that, and you just tell the people to go to see it.
I hope Mr.
Okay.
White's recording picked that up
Oh,
clearly for
yeah.
the transmission.
Oh.
But this is a serious, all right, development tool.
And I agree, and I think that Sal's doing a great job in trying to bring and expand on the industrial. Before I go any further, one of our audience members had his hand up. Was it constructive or?
Yeah, there was a question about the assessed value of the business as opposed to private homes. You're not assessed for what is in the building, because when the building is sold to another manufacturer,
Yeah.
the contents are really of no value, and you can't assess that, and it's basically the building. And I don't think we should.
That's not what I asked.
You take
No,
property
I
tax.
asked
No, that was prior to one,
Business,
prior to
personal
one,
property tax is what I
prior to
determined.
one, prior to one.
Okay. Don't be causing any more trouble back there.
Okay. I get taxed.
All right. Does the board want me to invite Sal in next week again? Is there any purpose in having him?
I don't have.
Okay. I didn't think so. I thought he did an excellent job. Unfortunately, you were out that
We
day.
could talk to him on the Hammond School, though, I'll tell you.
Yeah, because we're gonna definitely talk about that one.
My God.
Talk to him on the Hammond School?
Yeah, it says Community and Economic Development Authority.
Yeah.
That one.
Okay, so going on to the Hammond School.
You know, I don't think this is a wise idea.
Boy, I think it's stupid.
Oh, it's agree.
But, you know what, that may be, and that's the nicest way I can put it, because in the long term, you're looking at a school, and you're talking about now putting it out for general municipal purposes or disposal. We're not gonna get that school back, and if for any reason we need to have that school, right now it is a school, and it can be used as such. And I'm not comfortable right now. And I don't know what CEDA's gonna use it for. No one's explaining to me what they're going to use it for.
Training and GEDs and.
Is that what they said?
It's just a bunch of filler in here. It's a,
Where'd you get that?
It was in the explanation you provided.
Really?
I didn't see it.
it's right, well, if I can.
If it's there.
Literacy program, certification training to help
Oh.
them attain
Where's
jobs.
the explanation?
Well, that's
And you
what
gotta
we
have
got.
to heat it, you're gonna have to.
This is what I said.
You
Yeah.
take-
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Why am I missing that?
Can I ask Derek a question? He may not have answered. I was actually speaking to Mr. Gifford today on this particular item, and it was his concern that it would become a town building out of the purview of the school system. Therefore, the town is gonna have to pay for heating, maintenance, everything, even though it's under the auspices of CEDA. It's not like CEDA is a separate department. I mean, its bills come to the town. Am I correct?
Even if let's take CETA out of there.
Yeah.
The town is now going to, we're going to have the cost of maintaining that, and whether it's CETA, whether it's a school, I would always prefer to have people in a building. An empty building usually doesn't fare as well as one that's being used. That's just my opinion.
To me, it's got commercial opportunities within onset. You know, we could knock it down and turn it into a parking lot.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's.
Then we
Well,
put a
let me
tent
ask-
up and teach children.
No.
Does it have any
We can go into
historic?
big Best Buy, there's all sorts of space around here that we can.
I'm not taking another Best Buy in town.
Well, I mean, there's just gonna be a lot of retail space that's available.
Madam Chair, if I may, can I ask the town administrator, do we know that we have a clear deed and title to that building and property.
No, that's another one as to whether we truly own it and when it was first established, whether it can even go back to us. Now the school may not own it, whatever created it. If this is one of the ones where somebody wrote in there that if it's not a school, it goes back to their family, we could be in trouble on there. We could lose a valuable asset.
Madam Chairman, I ask him a follow-up question.
Certainly.
I hope we're getting along with it. Can you resolve that legal issue within the next 3 weeks?
Yes.
All right.
That's good, he's made a commitment, hasn't he? By October 3rd, we'll know whether or not
Okay.
we can even do it.
Okay. All right. Okay, number 25.
That was,
Bylaws.
Bylaws, yeah.
That was the water.
Yeah,
that's Gary's
exactly.
bylaw.
Right.
Wasn't that the commissioner? Nope.
Oh, yeah, that was a long one.
He's kind of wordy.
Yeah. Okay, this is, the 26 is the dog one. There's a dog bylaw study committee?
Yeah, and 26 and 27
Seven?
both are
Yeah.
the,
Okay,
I don't know what that's about.
well, if we have to write explanations for this, I mean,
Well, they don't.
we don't have to, okay. All right, okay, that's fine.
And if it,
Yes.
Madam Chair, on 26, I believe the Special Acts of 1994 established that the chief of police is has the ultimate control over that.
Mhm.
I believe this would be to give it back to the animal control officer on there, so it's not the chief.
Oh, okay.
Which one's, I'm sorry,
Board of Selectmen, I believe.
established?
The Board of Selectmen used to be the hearing officers, and then it was transferred to the chief of police.
Okay.
This is, I believe, to restore it back to the Board of Selectmen.
No,
Why?
This actually, what happened is I believe the state of Massachusetts has rewritten the dog laws. And therefore, the first part, Article 26, is to basically put us back in line with the current state laws.
Okay.
And therefore, because of that, the dog bylaw study committee has not had enough time to be able to go back and revamp everything. So the second part of the article is to extend the committee so they can finish their job. They do not have it ready in time.
oh, okay.
I'm going to not speak on things I haven't heard about.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure, Bonnie.
I'm just curious, I mean, she said that this puts it back to the Board of Selectmen being the hearing officers, so you mean we're gonna be cluttered in Board of Selectmen meetings about nuisance dogs?
Hopefully not.
Okay,
We're giving up the sewer portion of it.
so they'll have extra time, huh?
Meaning won't be able to count toilets per mile.
Okay,
Enough to do, not to worry about dogs.
Yeah.
Article 28.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to ask the town administrator if the verbiage in this particular article is any different than the one that was previously passed. Is it the same article?
This one, as was voted in, is different. I believe there was, at the selectmen's meeting, there was a debate over it. I'm going, Madam Chair, I know we have one of the selectmen that was in the debate, and although I'm there, sometimes I'm not.
I got you, okay.
No, you're just not winning any friends, but.
Can you enlighten us?
Article 28 was to resubmit to the town meeting the sewer commission that changed from the Board of Selectmen due to the original article becoming stale by not being moved along. And this article basically is the same article as what went before town meeting. There was some language changes in the first 2/3 of it, which fixed some of the issues that were sitting waiting around for a year and a half or so. What was added to that, because the Board of Selectmen have certain powers that are in charter already, and you take the sewer commissioners out of the mix and separate them, they don't have by town charter those same particular powers as well. So this is part of the things that are written is to take care of that thing. Also, the sewer superintendent, his duties
and powers were never really specified, which is another issue. So basically from section 37E, those pieces there, those are all brand new. If there is a problem anybody has with that, they can simply get up to the town meeting floor and ask to have those pieces removed. But anything before E is virtually the same, except for corrections to basically comply with the different attorneys in the Senate or in the House, some language issues they had before.
Okay, so, and E on is new?
Powers and duties of sewer superintendent. They were
Okay,
never specified out for the change properly. And discussion with town council, he and I worked on that and made a decision it should be fully explained out. So we went ahead and wrote that in the
okay.
It's easy to remove someone to get on town meeting. Madam Chair, for the sake of expediency, can we ask for a red line copy on this? As we asked Mr. Buckminster on his bylaw, so we don't have to go back and start comparing things to what
That's a,
they think. A red line copy would be exceptionally helpful.
is that possible, Mr. Slavin?
That's what I love.
Can I ask you for it? Thank you.
I'm just confused by these, and I got to, on page 21, it says, Section 2, this act shall take effect upon its passage, which is perfectly clear, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. How does that all flow?
That's legal language on an article like this. Because what happens is it will basically take effect upon its passage, or to do an act in any manner relative. That's the basic term that they normally always use there.
Okay, but supposing you had to explain it to the 17-year-old, explain it to me.
I've had town council explain it to us problem. I would not understand.
We got 200 people sitting in the audience, and they don't.
Town council is on the
Up on stage.
page for that particular reason. That's inserted by town council.
But is it?
Donna,
Yes.
if your question is, or to take any other action relative thereto.
It's on every one of these.
Yes, that's generally in all of your warrant articles, and that broadens the scope so that somebody can make an amendment. If you didn't have that wording in there, then you would be relegated to only voting on exactly in the warrant, and you would not be able to amend any warrant articles, because you would only be able to act on what was in the warrant. So when you add that, and that's standard throughout the Commonwealth and every open town meeting, it broadens the warrant article to allow you to make adjustments if you need to.
I didn't know that.
Okay, or as may be amended. Why the hell don't they say that? I mean, if that's what it means.
Because lawyers don't like this.
Because lawyers get big money to do that.
It also, I think, allows the House and Senate on a special act, if they want to change some language, to keep it within the same way, they can do it as well.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't
Well,
change
thank
the
you.
intent of the article. You can't explain comments, it's been there for as long as I've been involved in it. I don't have an answer.
Doesn't mean,
Doesn't
okay.
mean it's right, that's what's been.
But it just, is it in the right position? This act shall take effect on its passage,
Yes,
period.
that's it.
Or to do or act in a manner relative thereto. I would think that should be before section 2, anyway. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Understood.
Anybody have any more? Okay, Article 29.
What is this?
I think
You got me.
if Mr. Gifford is in next week, he, I think, doesn't he handle the cemeteries?
Well, that's what I would have thought, but this is from the cemetery commissioners.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second, hold on.
Correct,
There.
this was voted, this has nothing to do with Mr. Gifford, this was voted in, brought by them, it was brought to me, I explained, well, let me get back to it, they said, well, we put money into the general fund, so we should be able to take that money out, and I explained that's not how it works. They said, well, where do our fees go? And in the budget, and this is a good explanation, because some people may not understand what happens in there. there's a fees section, and that encompasses a lot of the fees that we generate. So I did explain on there, and this was the one that came in at the end, that I don't have the money for this. If the recycling, I've put the 3,000 aside because we had that available. This is sort of, for me, this is sort of something that came out of the blue. They're not taking from a fund, they're just taking out of the general fund. So this is, I just have an issue with the way it was done. If it was done in spring, and I'm able to try and think about this and such, it's just, I would have hoped it could wait till the next town meeting and try and put something for there, but.
Okay, good.
Madam Chair, I don't even know why this would go in there, because I believe somebody made the comment earlier, municipal maintenance takes care of the cemeteries. They've done it since I've been around the town, and I'm pretty sure they've done it longer than that. They have the equipment to do it, and for someone to basically, even if you're taking it out of the general fund, now you're taking it away from municipal maintenance as well, because that's the money that they, from an overall standpoint, that money is used to fund them taking care of it. So I'm real unclear as to what this article is actually doing. And I also believe if you tie them both together, especially if we're hiring an arborist to evaluate the health and conditions of the trees and shrubs. Okay. Look, I don't know what's going on with this, but we actually, I believe, had a young Eagle Scout come before the Board of Selectmen to do a project, I believe, and part of it was cleaning up the cemetery. Is that correct?
That is.
No, we got a guy that's an Eagle Scout that's doing it for free, and all of a sudden there's $16,000 that somebody wants to spend to do it. Do you find that a little odd?
And it's
I certainly do.
it's not just him, he's bringing experienced people
Oh, yeah.
in there working on it. So
For free.
Yeah. Who are the cemetery commissioners?
Well, I don't know. Who are the cemetery commissioners?
Cemetery commissioners as of today, it's Dan Miller, Brenda Exton, who's just appointed. There's three.
Oh,
Right now, there's only two
that's
in
a
place. I would
Okay.
suggest that if you want answers to your questions, you ask Mrs. Miller to come before you.
Please, I would love to have her come in, because I would really like to understand how we want to spend $16,000 when we have a young man who's going to do it for free for credit in his Boy Scout, and you're taking money away from, in my opinion, municipal maintenance.
So that's $16,000, yeah, and I agree with you, I agree, yes.
I might add what Larry was saying, the young man and his friends were there last weekend and did a superb job.
Excellent.
They're not finished, but what they did was, you could pick it out immediately if you go by it daily the way I did. They did a great job.
Do you want me to ask Nan Miller to come in?
Yes, I do.
I actually
Behave over there.
I shouldn't have spoken to this. I should have done the same thing with
Yeah.
everybody else. So I
Yeah.
apologize.
You
for
could probably
saying
ask the
to
whole-
that.
We've been here 2.5 hours, guys.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, that one wrapped me up for those two right there.
Okay.
Wrap it up here.
All right, amend the zoning bylaws.
I think they have to provide an explanation, but
Yeah,
did supply an explanation.
and I'll take those two right up on, by the way.
So, okay. So you want somebody to come in?
I would like that, if you don't mind.
From the zoning?
Yes, please.
Would that be Judge Barrett,
Planning board,
planning board?
other town planner.
John, town planner, okay. All right, okay, I'll do that. It should be brief. I don't think there's anything to go over 32. I mean, we've been up and down the street 15 times.
I think we just vote on it because it's.
Comment on that?
Yes,
On the explanation, Kelly, this was provided by the committee?
Which one are we, yes.
32,
Yes.
Okay. Can we get a blurb under that?
A what?
blur.
Blurb?
Not
A
blur.
blurb.
Blur.
Kim, I mean, I don't want this to represent that these facts are in any way, shape, or form our conclusions or our investigation, you know what I mean? That this explanation, their reason for doing this is clearly submitted by the citizens of the area. It has nothing to do with us.
Well, and we're gonna vote on it too.
Well, I understand that, but the way it reads, when it says explanation, it's almost as if We are stating these historical facts and we are not. This
No.
is their
That's how I took it,
conjecture.
too.
Okay.
That's how I took it.
This is their
Okay.
conjecture.
Okay,
Our
so,
recommendation is the second anyway.
pardon?
Our recommendation is separate anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, FinCom's explanation will be separate, okay.
Okay.
All right,
But is this printed out with the warrant?
yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
yes.
motion for favorable action
On what?
on this article.
On Article
What are you
32.
nuts?
We do all favorable action
Yes, we
motions.
do.
Motion for favorable
I'll
action.
second that.
Second for discussion?
I think it's, a second for discussion. My comment would be, we talked this over and beat this horse so many times, I don't think we need to go any further than to vote right now.
I agree.
Agreed.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I think that's it.
All right. All those in favor of Article number 32? All those opposed?
Aye.
All abstentions? It's unanimous again. Boy, that went quick, didn't it?
7.
Seven,
070.
070.
So I got one more out of tonight.
Okay. And Article 33 is to hear the report of the Board of Selectmen relative to the Westfield project.
Okay.
I guess
Motion for favorable action.
Second for discussion?
It's,
I hear you.
it's only an article to let them make. the
Yeah, I hear you.
presentation, So it's like a housekeeping article.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
700.
So we got two?
We got two voted on, okay. All right, I'm going to, Marilyn's not here, but is there any written report on the Quinn report, on the Quinn?
Okay. Last night I sat down on my computer.
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you very much, go home.
Thank you, sir.
I'll talk to you
Before you
tomorrow.
start talking Quinn bills.
Can I, I'll talk with you tomorrow afternoon anytime? What's the
I'm
number?
going to put in a special request to write our opinion on 29 and 30.
We're taking, starting a pool on one marriage is going to last.
Thank you. All right,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Quick.
Yes.
I put something to inadequately, I might say, last night at 10 o'clock.
Okay,
And it's not anywhere other than at the beginning of the discussion of what has to be done. Send a copy to town and send a copy to Maryland. So we're still gonna have to trade this stuff back and forth because, as I noted in my copy, I don't have Word or Excel on my own computers now. And I'm down
Is this a
to-
Titanic thing?
Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 computers in the house and don't have Excel or Word. There's a very little chance of putting it on there, so when I'm down at Elks, that's when I do my work, but, it'll be delayed at least another week.
okay, all right. Okay, that's, and the capital planning, do you have anything to report tonight, or,
No, next meeting is Friday.
okay?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, and where is it at?
In the cafeteria.
Cafeteria, okay. All right, can I have I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 22nd,
So moved.
2012?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next meeting date will be next week, 6:30.
26.
Are you going to assign?
Yes, I am going to assign. Do you want them, these signed, do you want these?
I want 29 and 30. I don't care what else I get, but those ones I'd like to have.
Boy, you're hot to trot, aren't you? Okay,
Give them 1 through 28 too. He
yeah,
said they
we'll
didn't care what
let
else
you
you
have them all,
got.
yeah, we'll give them all, okay.
Give them the
All right.
CPC while you're at it.
All right, when did we have to have these explanations written out?
Everything, I need to have everything by October 5th.
Okay, October 5th, that's not much time, guys.
How many weeks we got left? 1 week? I mean, 2 weeks?
We have 2 weeks, we have 2 more meeting nights to
Yeah.
vote on everything.
Yeah,
but I need the recommendations by the 5th because it goes to the printer the 9th.
So we've got the 26th and we've got the 3rd, but then she's only got 2 days to get it.
But if I can get all the recommendations by the 5th, I can do it on the weekend.
Okay, all right,
That's why
okay.
I'm saying the deadline is the 5th.
Okay,
If we go at the next meeting, you assign them, we should be good.
Sure.
okay,
Some of these do not require an explanation. from the
exactly.
And those, you should redline right off the bat, so when we get this next update for this thing,
Yeah,
there should be just simply no explanation
Okay.
listed. So
Okay.
if you've done 32, you've done 33, how many of them are dead ducks?
okay.
That gives you what you gotta do for the rest, and that should ease some of the problems out.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
In a second.
All in favor? I